At about 3:03, we'll call the meeting to order. Is a budget work session for the fire department first. If we finish that, then we'll get into the general fund, a little more recap. Today's Wednesday, October 26th, 2022. And if you want to do roll call, that would.
Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Winslow.
Present.
Trustee Everson.
Here.
Trustee Marks.
Present.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Secretary is here, and Supervisor Duran.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Kangas, our Fire Chief Dan Shanahan, Assistant Chief Rob Cochran, and our Assistant Clerk Accountant Kim Clark is here.
Great, perfect, thank you. We don't have any public, thank you. So we can get right into the fiscal year 2023 fire budget. Do you want to make a preliminary statement? Do you want us to just get into?
We can get, I'll be very, very brief. I would like, first of all, and I know I briefly told you, Supervisor Grant, that we found out yesterday from FEMA, AFG, if you will, that they have extended the grant period until the end of November, which is their fiscal year ends September 30th, but we received an email yesterday, October 25th, stating that the grant, the AFG grant period is not over yet, will extend until the end of, so we're not, I've said before, we were done because the fiscal year was done, even though we never officially got a notice, but sometimes they're a little slow with that, but it has been extended, just so everybody's aware.
Which
so we
grant?
still are in the running.
Which
That was for the ambulance.
Any chance, you think? Very little.
I don't know.
Who knows with them,
I
right?
know.
Yeah.
And this is, the only reason is it is extended, I believe, I don't have the memo in front of me, but it was because of the ARPA funds. The federal government has 300 million or something like that of ARPA funds for AFG,
Oh.
so.
We'll still keep our fingers.
Yeah, and that, but that also means we won't be moving on an ambulance until after, and one of the reps was on the phone with me at 2:30 saying, boy, if you don't get it in by November 7th, but it is what it is.
Yeah, well, we'll be a month later, you know, getting our order out.
Getting our order out, but it could delay receiving one by
Yeah.
another 12 months longer. But
It
that
what
is what it is.
We'll still
We'll make
keep
it
our
work.
fingers crossed and
Yep.
maybe we can get to them.
We're fine, yeah.
Remind us how much the grant's worth?
The grant, we asked for 250. With the one price we did get in Monday was 275, 290.
Well, if you're,
They've gone up that much in a year and a half.
if we kind of said the other night that we were gonna do 300,000, maybe you should put the order in,
But we can't.
not lose a month.
No.
Oh, it's because of the grant you
Yes.
can't, okay.
We can't, I
Pardon
would
me.
love to, I'd have done it a year
Yeah.
ago. Because you guys had sort of
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
said that you would.
Do I need to withdraw the motion or at the next
No.
meeting, or should we just let it ride and keep?
We'll
We
let
didn't put
it,
a date on there.
no, we'll let it ride, and if, we won't act on it until the final grant is awarded or not awarded.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I like that.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay.
You have my memo. Money-wise, we're okay, and there's something, and I've talked to Kim and Manager Kangas about is getting the building, I'd like to have a set payment. It's hard. I know we budget the 84,000 towards the building, I believe. And then we pay quite a bit extra at the end of the year, or we have in years past. Last year we didn't quite as much because we had to borrow money. But we still paid quite a bit. I'd like to have a set payment if it's possible. I know we have to spend down our funds. I'm aware of that, but keep that money for 3 or 4 months before we put a big payment on a building, in case there's things we either go over budget, which we budget pretty close. Obviously, there's some expenses we don't know, i.e. vehicles, maintenance, I don't know what they're gonna be. But one item will wipe out that $20,000 we put in there. We only budget 20, but some, like this year, we're only at 11, but one item, like I said, can eat up that $20,000. But I'd like to get a good number that we have to pay on that building. Save that money until year end, if I'm making sense. Save whatever we have left over, and then in April, go ahead and put that money towards the building. But if we do it January 1, and we don't end up our fiscal year's over, but we don't know what our ending numbers are until April, what have we put in versus what? And if we do need to get stuff, I don't know what our ending numbers are. So that's why I asked Lenny, and we had discussed, and Lenny was fine with it, and I know you've maybe talked to him too about that $20,000 a year. And we might not need that, to take that money, or give it right back, say, yeah, we won't budget in for it to pay him, but at the end of the year, go, hey, we're good, didn't have any big vehicle expenses, or whatever it may be, and we can still get those items, the laptops that are 7 years old, the wildland gear that's 18 years old, instead of, I guess, waiting and spending that money in the building. And if I'm making sense.
I guess we'd have to ask either Roger or the auditors how long we can hold funds. And if it ends up being, a journal entry, the end of January, with that money, that the excess having to go, well, we've been putting on the building just because you can't hold it. But I don't know how long we cannot allocate it, unless we use the 20 maybe for Public Works as that kind of float. If we've already kind of talked about you not paying that to him this year, if we use that instead of the excess building.
Correct, and that would, whatever
That might
you've decided,
work,
whatever.
but I'd rather have approval before we okay to budget that.
That's fine, but I just like to, we're sort of guessing,
Yeah, I know.
not guessing,
I know what you
but
mean.
don't know, and
Stuff
I'd like to
happens after
know
the first of the
exactly.
year.
And at the end of the year, and everybody's been very good, but at the end, then now comes April and say, well, this is your final for 2020 or something. Well, it's zero. Boy, I wish we could have saved. If I'd have had a $50,000 truck repair, I would have had to come to you and said, can I borrow $50,000 until next year because we spent all of our money? And I just wish there could be a little bit of a cushion in there, if,
Check with the attorney.
it just, okay, you understand what I'm.
See what John knows.
Anything that's derived by the millage has to be spent in the calendar year. If it's revenue generated by ambulance service, you could carry that over, and I think we've talked on multiple occasions about some of that being carried over for future replacement costs, right? Future ambulance, basically funding a CIP. But it would be a good idea that we talk to both Roger Zappa and the auditor to figure out how soon after the end of the fiscal year that has to be squared up, because it's easy to justify paying down more debt with money you've already collected as opposed to sending it back to the taxpayers, because you can always spend down the debt until the debt is gone. Revenues that are not collected via millage don't have that same requirement on it. So we just need to take a closer look at that, figure out how much of the revenue is from ambulance services, and that gives us flexibility on what that payment maybe should be. And I think as a board, it's a lot easier for you to say, okay, you've been funding this in your CIP and now you have to spend $50,000 on a truck repair. Yep, it's gonna have to come out of the CIP because it's prolonging the life of your equipment, that kind of thing.
But like he's saying, it may not be enough either.
Well, then, just like every other department, you would have to come to us and ask for more money, and we would have to figure that out. So over budgeting is not always a wise thing to do, and I agree, I don't think you're allowed to. I think you have to spend it.
Yeah, you have to, but I don't know what the carryover is either.
But
Yeah, I don't
there
think
is a
really
happy medium in there, I think, because some of what's been going towards the building at the end of the year has been coming out of the ambulance revenue, I believe. So
definitely.
that's where the money gives us much more flexibility, because once you perform the service, the fee is due, or the bill is due, and then there's no other requirement on how those funds are used beyond keeping it in the department, right? So,
Why wouldn't the ambulance excess go into the fund for the ambulance?
Well, because they
because
haven't,
we've been paying down the principal and interest
But
on the
that's-
building.
that's
that's
supposed
where
to
it
be
should
extra.
go. Yeah.
If we're trying to fund an ambulance and we've got a CIP in there, it doesn't make sense to put it toward the building, in my
I
mind.
don't disagree. This has
We're- I
been
think
an,
we're all on the same page.
Specific.
yep.
Yep.
Well, besides that, money coming from the ambulance runs, however we manage that, some of that should be paying for staff.
And it is, it's all.
And so
if
we
you-
want to just see all that at some point. How, is the ambulance making, is the ambulance sustaining the ambulance service?
I agree.
It is.
And- and
Yeah,
I know I've-
but we still need to see that.
It's making money. Well,
Well-
a lot of it's in here.
It's bringing income in compared to where we were prior
Right.
to the ambulance. We are bringing in money. There's no, I mean, yes.
Right, I understand that you're bringing in money, but, well,
No, I understand what I think I do.
You know, there's
Is it
a-
making
there's a
money?
fee.
Are we $1 ahead? Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
Peter?
but there's a fee for the building, I mean, there's all kinds of fees, and we divvy those fees up for other services here to the departments that use the services.
I would say give us clear direction on what you're looking for from a
Okay.
budgetary breakdown, and we'll get it to you.
Yeah,
Okay,
'cause
not
it's pretty
today,
complex.
Assuming that the
breakdown.
records exist.
right,
to
and
be able to
that's
do it.
probably the
It
part
would be,
that's,
it would be.
that's the
Staff-
part that's missing.
It is, oh, you better, that's a big one.
Because at some point, I think we're gonna have to say to the people in this community, we need more money to fund our ambulance service, and are you willing to fund a millage for that?
And that's just it. If we're taking.
And we need to
if
show
we're taking
it.
Money and putting it on a building, that's not fair.
That's not fair.
Right.
So
Right.
any excess, I guess I was under the assumption, I don't know about the rest of the gang, that ambulance was doing ambulance stuff. And excess that would have gone to the to the fund balance was just millage that we had to get rid of. So we were putting it on the building.
Yeah, because ambulance fees are not a special assessment,
Yeah,
so you
that's-
don't have to spend those down.
Yep. So at some point, we'll get this all
That-
figured
that
out.
breakdown, we'll take just the staffing part, because we do have it separate, weekends, yes, we have that's a separate line item. But if we get a call right now, and guys come in, that is not separated out.
Right, right.
Okay.
But we'll figure it out,
Okay.
okay, because we don't want to have to spend down money if we can put some into a capital improvement fund
I
for
would
the
love that.
ambulance services.
Yep, I would love that.
Because then we can say to the residents, we need or we don't need what we need.
Right.
Does that
No,
make
It
sense?
sure does.
Dan
I'm on
Dan
the same-
Everson wants a second new ambulance, you know?
Yeah, I know,
I
yeah, I
mean,
don't know about
well,
that.
we've
Yeah,
talked about that. There's nothing wrong with that,
No.
but we have to be able to show
Well,
need and what's going on.
Yep,
Okay.
and we're on the
all
same
right.
page.
So I want to know why you think, on the taxes,
boy.
why do you think your taxes are going down $18,000?
Well, hang on. Are you finished with your
Oh,
narrative?
sorry. I thought you were done, Dan.
I mean,
Yeah, you're
you
right,
got more
Lynn.
things you want to say? We're not on a time crunch. You're fine.
Okay, yeah. No, that I should, that's,
Just tell them pay as you go. You're okay.
yeah.
Well, we don't have pay-as-you-go.
Okay.
I did put in my, I do believe I put in, did I put that in? Maybe? Yeah, 20,000, yeah, $20,000. Well, last year we anticipated 853.
Yeah.
As a tax, we collected 834, that's roughly, it's 19 something. So I rounded it up to $20,000.
So we have,
collected
our
less.
taxes are going to be, we're going to take in more money this year.
And I never, and I will say, at the
Aren't
time of
we?
this, I never
Not
received any
necessarily.
numbers.
If the tax tribunals are settled, it might lower that.
And my lord, in which Kim or John, maybe Kim, no. I did see, we made a payment, the fire department made it, which I was, of $7,000 to the tax tribunal.
Yeah.
So we can take that out of wherever you want. I took it off the revenue.
You're just
Just
being
because we don't have a
conservative,
tax-
that's all.
Okay,
Tribunal.
I just wondered where you
Yeah.
got that number from.
Yeah.
I'm still not
The
sure
good
about
news
that.
is he's presenting a budget that he believes he can accomplish while not projecting a significant revenue increase. If the significant revenue increase comes to fruition, he'll be in better shape at the end of the year and we have more money to put on the principal of the building, right? I mean, we just had that conversation. If it's village-based, it goes to the principal of the building.
Right, oh, right,
Yeah.
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 Don't say millage on special assessment.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Millage and assessments
Are
are different.
different.
I'm sorry, the special assessment, the millage is for the CIP.
Yeah.
Okay, so, that was just my first question.
Yeah,
Ernie, you had your hand up for a while, so did you,
We're talking about two different revenues here. Act 33 is the one that we have to be concerned with, the spending down. All other revenue is however we want to spend it, however the budget is set. We don't have any problem with holding that money over and that.
Good.
It's the Act 33 money that we have to be concerned with and that. The other money is whatever comes in, we spend it. If there's anything left over, we don't have to worry about that at all and that. We don't have to worry about spending that down. So it's only the Act 33 money.
which is most of it.
correct.
Speaking of that, Dan, what, if I may, what do we owe left on the building? What's left on the principal of the building, do you know?
Yes, I haven't looked at it recent.
Probably in there, I just
It
haven't
is,
looked at
it is in here. I'm gonna say rough, and Kim might have it in front of her, I'm gonna say roughly 1 million,
Still 1 million?
and I could be a little high with that.
That was a $2 million building? so-
Correct.
So we basically paid off half so far.
What's in here? It is- Kim might have it. And yes, I mean, if,
But I don't quite understand, is the fire department half of it and the township hall the other half?
It's not an equal 50-50.
Oh. Well, then it doesn't really tell us on that sheet.
It
So-
does not, and I would have to go back to the original loan documents to figure out what percentage of it is
Okay.
fire.
So
it was
basically,
like
we got a-
60 or a year.
So basically $1 million sort of in that area.
Yes.
But that's
And I-
fine, we've paid it, half of it down in almost, 7 years, so.
Yep,
Well, this says two.
Yeah, but it's both
this
buildings,
is,
Lynn.
it's
On the
combined.
top.
Oh, township fire.
Yeah, that's why I thought, oh, it was half, but it's not half. So we maybe need to break that out, so we,
We'll have to look.
okay.
Well, they're gonna balloon pretty quick anyway, so.
Yeah, it's right, it is here.
Good point, but yeah, it'd be nice to have them separate.
But the actual percentage is what they're looking, like, for.
Oh, it's like 55, 45 or
But-
60.
And that's fine, I just
It's
wanna know.
one
so
loan
if-
for
Yeah, it
multiple
is here.
buildings, so.
We can pull that file.
Yeah, so if a resident asks me, what do we owe on each, facility, then I
You
know.
know,
Also, keep in mind, the fire department has been paying additional principal payments, the general fund has not, so
right,
The
we
fire-
paid quite a bit.
the fire department's building is getting paid down much quicker than township hall.
Yes.
And I would like, and that was, and as we've sort of discussed, and I think you didn't, we have two, we'd like to slow that down a little bit, so we're not always having to come to you, or not always, but we came, hey, can we borrow money for a year? And if we just had a little bit set plan on paying it down, I don't know, I like, if we do have the extra, that's fine, but not, don't pay it so that we don't have.
It goes back to Act 33. We have to get that clear.
I understand.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
But we also,
Get that defined.
have the ambulance and
What we can and can't do.
equipment, village.
What you
know.
can say, what you can put into a
Right.
fund, we'll call it capital
Capital, yeah.
improvement fund for whatever.
Apparatus.
I bet, I'm guessing you maybe can do that.
And we already have that. That's, what does it say?
You want to create a separate fund for, a CIP fund for ambulance replacement.
Well, We call it apparatus, and we do have that.
Yeah, so
We
you
already
could
have that.
put that in
And we put
there.
158, 144 roughly a year in there.
So you have money in a fund already.
Well,
That's
except
a
we bought the fire
separate
truck
millage,
last
though.
year.
That's what we'll have to find out.
Yeah, yeah, so
And
a
we
couple
brought-
questions.
But yes, we already are putting money in there,
Huh.
Okay.
and we spent it.
You want to go down the list? I was looking at the narrative and then kind of going back and forth to the budget worksheet. On that first page after the written narrative, you've got all your revenues listed. I came up with different numbers than you did. There's a almost $30,000 decrease from what you're saying the revenues are gonna be, and that doesn't include the 20,000, I don't think. I'm going by the department request, because the manager request total isn't
Where are you?
right.
My form is not in your book for some reason. It's probably because I finished it and didn't share it with Kim when she filled the
Yeah.
books.
Yeah, everything I have in the fire department section is what Dan.
I do not recall changing any of Dan's requests, because typically there's not a whole lot to talk about in the fire department's budget. It is what it is. I mean, their expenses are pretty consistent. The only thing that's significantly changing this year is contract wages and benefits. So I don't know that I'm concerned that my recommendation is not shown here, because I don't think I recommended anything different from what he
Okay.
had.
And I did ask Dan too, that there is a 2.5% increase budgeted for the firefighters.
So,
That's in there.
so all the staff will be getting a 2.5%, just like everyone else. That would be the fair thing.
Yep, yeah, we started that a couple years, 2 or 3
Yeah.
years ago.
Yep. So Dan, I looked through all this too. I didn't really see anything I was concerned about. You know,
Just the revenue differences.
so where is it, Lynn? How did you get a
The
difference?
first page, look at the first page, where all the revenues are listed.
I got that. So you added up what he proposed?
Well, license and permits is an actual $250 loss. Grants are up $17.50. I just want to make sure that the numbers that you have in the budget are correct, because you're saying there's no change, no change, no change.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the ambulance transport fees, there's $11,000 difference.
But if you look at the original 2022 budget versus the department request for 2023, it's only a $3,350 increase.
Yep, I'm looking at the amended budget
I know.
versus what
You
he's
have to
asking for.
compare both columns, the estimated total and the original budget. That shows a difference of an increase in revenue that was not originally anticipated, which may be a one-time thing. So you gotta be a little bit careful there that you don't over adjust and then expect a revenue that you're not going to see repeated.
Oh, so that's where the $30,000.
That's fine, because in most cases, the budgets in the past for everybody, I'm not saying you, didn't do that. So if you want to do that, that's fine. That's why I just made sure there's a $30,000 difference between the
Correct.
increases and decreases that you're saying on here
Oh,
versus
right.
what's in the spreadsheet.
And if you compare the original 2022 budget to the requested 2023 budget, it's only a $15,000 reduction in revenue, of which
20,000.
most of it is accommodated by the overestimated original 2022 revenue from taxes. Okay? There's, well, 53 minus 35, that's the biggest difference. Right?
I see what you're saying.
So maybe, maybe next year, in an effort to make you not have to write all these no change, no change, no change, maybe John will share with you what he did. I don't know if you saw how he did it for the general budget.
Just go to the general fund budget and you'll see in the margin.
Everything's
I put
on one
notes.
page, and that would help
It
us.
changes
Oh,
from,
sure would.
from portrait to landscape,
yeah.
the orientation.
Yeah, and it's
Orientation.
it's very user-friendly then.
I agree.
So I can show,
You don't
My
have to flip
friends.
back and forth.
Right.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
agree
maybe
100%.
everyone can do that.
Yes, no, I definitely would. It'd be easier for everybody
Every-
instead of putting up two windows going.
Yeah, then when
this
you're-
in a line.
Yeah, when your
Yep.
budget committee looks at all this before we get
I agree.
it, they'll be able to offer suggestions easier than no change.
I did ask Randy Gerard to do that, probably 2 years ago. So that every one of these sheets would look the same, you know, it'd be perfect
That would
if
be nice,
if
yep.
the fonts and everything were the same.
Huge paper
Okay.
saver,
Easier,
right,
but-
Lynn?
Yeah, apparently that message didn't get,
Yeah, no, this is the way they've done it for the last 30 years, I guess, and just,
It's just extra work for you. We're
Oh, I
trying to
agree,
make
it's
it more
harder.
efficient, that's
Yeah.
all.
it is, because you gotta go, and we
You know.
usually go through and go, okay, is
Yeah.
that one right? Is that a $150 change,
Yeah.
you know? And it takes a couple people to go through
Yeah,
make the changes.
so,
good. Well, it's a
Well-
good thing that came up then.
so
I
you're
don't-
saying
Word
it's
document is actually
15,000.
very cumbersome
yeah,
as
he
well.
said 15.
Yeah.
You said 15, so that, I can understand that then.
So you have enough money in your education budget? Is your staff paid when they have education?
It depends. Full-time, yeah, good point. Full-time, when they go Monday through Friday, the three of us, if we want to go to a conference or go to education, we are paid.
But our other staff is not paid?
We have not, and,
Oh. What about education?
Well, wait, now, that's something different.
What is
Those are
different?
not full-time employees you're talking about, right?
Correct.
They're not staff.
They are staff.
They are different.
They're
paid
they're
on
paid
call.
on
Yes,
call.
right.
They're paid to go to education. No.
They need it,
No.
if they need it.
If they need it, they're
Yeah.
paid to go?
no, correct.
Oh.
But
we-
we cover
we
the
have not-
cost though, of them going.
Pardon me?
We cover the cost of them going.
Exactly.
So,
We will pay for their travel, we'll pay for their, meal, lodging.
but you won't pay for the time they have to take off work?
We will not pay for them to take off. We have
thought we
never done
discussed
it in
this
the past.
last
I'm not
year.
saying-
What? Really?
We discussed this last year, and I thought
Yeah.
it was then approved that you were gonna pay them for, am I right or am I wrong?
You're okay.
I don't remember
I
that.
don't remember that
I don't
discussion.
remember that either.
Well,
Boy, that one would have stuck with me because it's been talked about for 20 years.
and people the board hasn't supported that, Dan?
It's never been brought to the board.
Talking about like EMS conferences and.
Correct.
I thought we talked about that.
Their
and-
expenses are covered, but they're not paid wages.
Well,
Correct.
But I thought
then
it-
why would
because
they
if
go?
have to take off work to go, then we should reimburse them for losing work.
Well, I agree, and I think that's been in some memos that I've sent along to the board over the years, we have done, I have put that, guys take vacation time, take us, maybe not
They
sick
take
time.
time with no pay?
Time with no pay, some people.
We gotta change that.
Yeah, do we pay them? Just something to discuss, it's not, obviously not budgeted for. Do we pay them our wage or their wage?
Their wage.
You're getting very
You mean the
expensive.
fire department wage versus the wage that they're making at work?
Correct.
Oh, no, they
No.
should be the fire department.
Fire
wage.
department wage.
Yes.
Now,
Right,
question
right.
now is this, how many, do they have recertification, the firefighters, every so many years, or once they're done, they're done?
No, recently firefighters need certification every year now too.
So they have to go to a conference or what
No,
have
I
Yeah,
think
they-
you have what about, okay, so what about the education meeting you have once a month? Is that part
That's
of their
paid.
learn?
That's paid.
That's paid, and that's paid, it's not paid completely.
Tell them how.
Nobody's fully
yeah.
compensated for the time they
How's
put
it
in.
paid? How's it paid?
1 hour.
1 hour, which is equal to, I don't know, do you know how
Nine-
much they make an hour?
19 something.
No, some are, the EMTs are at 19.35, and the firefighters are at 18,
33.
yeah.
And how many hours do they spend at those meetings?
It can be longer,
How long, Dan?
3, 4.
3 or 4 hours and you're paid $18 for required education.
That just became requirement
It's
this year.
required now.
It did become a requirement this year.
So my point here is.
I understand it, I do.
Well, no, it's not about, it's like we're struggling across the country to have people in our
Right.
paid on call, or whatever you want to call
I
it.
know.
They're part-time employees in my
Yeah.
mind, okay? And we have to do something, and if the city came forward and said to Dan Everson, I have a job for you, What happens to our paid on-call people?
We've lost a few.
We lost quite a few to the
Just
city.
lost one, real good one.
We're real good on just recently.
Yeah.
Lost two, well, a couple recently.
So the whole thing
But there's
is,
more.
we have to take care of our people, right?
I
We
understand.
take care of our people here because we have good employees, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so,
Well,
You're not-
I don't-
But you're not comparing apples to apples there either. If the city says they want to take one of ours,
no, I
the
said,
wage.
yeah, we need to, we,
But they do need to be compensated for, I think,
I don't have a problem with if they're required to go to these things and they're required education, they should be paid for every time they're there. That's my opinion, because that's what they do for us,
we're getting by cheap.
yeah. So, there's your extra money you can spend.
Here goes that 20,000 right now.
Yeah, the 20,000's gone. Yeah.
But it's-
I go, you guys
it's-
wanna get paid, or you wanna buy your own wild man gear? And I'm kidding.
It is something that really should be. I
And I
thought we
understand that.
discussed this last year
We've
and
discussed
okayed
it, I
it.
don't remember, that really would've stuck, because this is something that's been brought up since I've been on the department.
Well, what we'll do, Dan, is
And we just,
it's a policy, so what we have to do is, you guys have to make a policy that if you're required to go to these conferences for the department, you'll get paid your firefighter wage. while you're
required,
there.
required
That has to come to the
education.
board.
Required, what's that?
That has to come to the
Policy
board.
does,
The
yeah.
policy, yes.
So all required education to
Be paid.
function as whatever they're,
Yeah, because every other job has that.
There are some Fair Labor Standards Act issues there that we have to keep track of as well,
don't go there.
in that a full-time employee doesn't necessarily get compensated beyond their normal day's pay
Workday, yeah.
unless they extend their day to travel to offset lodging costs. And then we're paying them overtime to travel instead of renting them a room for another day. So,
I thought it had something to do with them not being full-time employees. I swear Randy told me something.
Well, I'm sure there
I
is-
agree with
Right,
it, but
right.
Well, I was
for some
part-time.
reason, because they're on call, that we can't pay them. That we can cover their expenses, or if it's part of the non-compete thing for 1 or 2 years that they can't leave. I don't know, there was something
But we
in
need to
that.
check, before we go any forward, we have to check
Yeah.
with the labor attorney on that and see what we can and can't do. Because that's ultimately what's gonna drive your policy.
Right.
So we'll find out.
That's what John said, we don't know what we're gonna get into, because you start doing that. Do we walk into workman's comp, unemployment comp, all that other stuff by doing all this? So these are things that have to be answered in
Yeah, I
that
think
too.
it's different.
It's not just easy to pay unless you have all these other answers to go with you.
Because I remember having the discussion either with Ron in the vestibule or you a few years ago about them not being, because are they employees or not? And I don't remember what the answer was. Because they're on call, they're not considered employees, but the argument was that yes, it's like the board. We
They're
are considered
employees.
employees.
You are,
They're not.
They receive a W-2. then
yeah,
they're-
they're an
employees.
employee.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
They are.
But I know there was
Otherwise, they would
something with
receive
that, with the
1099.
payment and the training.
Oh, yeah, and that's a mess. That's gonna be a
Yeah.
mess.
Well, we will talk to, we have a labor attorney, we'll talk to
Yeah,
them.
the labor attorney, I don't know the answer.
I think I know the answer already. It's just something and believe me, I researched, I check in with, that's something that's, I check with all departments throughout the state and country on how they pay, treat, how they do this. I mean, that's just because of exactly what you had just said. The
Yeah, they're
declining-
gonna leave.
Right, they're leaving and we're not recruiting. So I have spent quite a bit of time researching everything. I know what those answers are.
Is there a possibility
We- I
of
think-
stipend?
We know. But it's also, I know,
We'll find out.
yeah, there you go. But we try and do our best.
Well, and you're different than like, if for me, if I go to a conference for the township, they pay my expenses, but they don't pay my city wages, or I don't get, I get my salary,
Right.
while I'm there.
You don't get audit, or,
But I don't
you
get,
get penalized.
I don't get penalized, yeah. I'm still
Right.
getting paid, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
you're a salaried employee.
I'm salaried, yeah. So, but we'll find out, we'll find
Okay.
that answer, and then maybe we'll move forward then starting in January 1, so.
So,
Okay.
so what other things would you like that maybe I haven't heard because I wasn't here before that, what other things is your staff asking for?
I,
Nothing?
well, they're all asking for something.
Well, you know, because I think this board is really open to making sure we have a satisfied
How's
group.
all the uniforms in that then? Are they up to grade?
We do pretty well, I'd say, on uniforms, this type, the Class B.
Because there are new materials in that out there now.
Oh, and bunker gear, we're fair, believe it or not, I don't know how many years, but we're in very good shape there, pretty good shape. But as you see, our uniforms is down right now, but I just ordered $9,000 worth of bunker gear not too long ago. That's 3 sets, that's 3 people. They're expensive. You get 3 people on. There's a lot of people asking for things, what's realistic and why are we here? We gotta look at all those things too. If it's strictly for money, it's not the place to come to.
No.
It's not.
So under capital, when it came to the planning commission, we still have under capital $50,000 for a water source on 550.
Let's not jump around.
Oh, I thought we were done.
I don't know. I don't know if anybody else has got any comments or questions.
I have no more comments.
I have a few
Okay.
in that. Most of them have been answered already in that. Question I have is, the proposed increase in hospitalization, we don't really know, that's just a
And those types of numbers,
That's a guesstimation.
That's an estimate.
We did 10%, right, John?
Okay.
And we think it's gonna be closer to 5 to 6% based on what our agent has been hearing.
Usually they come out at the end of October, don't they?
Yeah, I think Lois said somewhere around November that I would get something.
Yeah.
Now, also on fire marshal, on the pension, there's a proposed change. Now, with the salary increases, that sufficient to hit that pension dollar amount?
Yeah, it's a $300 decrease.
I'm looking
I'm
at
gonna put
it.
those numbers in.
1,800 on the first one. You have a department request of 18,800.
Those are
This
typically-
one Lois had already filled in for me, I didn't even. do
Yeah,
it.
and
Those numbers
I
I do
don't
not-
know that I can explain why Lois would put a
And what
number
I'm
in there
thinking,
less
like-
than last year's request,
I can take.
but it is more in line with historical numbers.
Yeah,
So it's probably pretty accurate.
yeah, she had already had the fire department one, so I would have something to kind of look at.
Okay, then, pretty answered most of it, those questions. You already answered the bunker gear. Didn't we have a grant or something for bunker gear in the last couple of years in that too, Sal?
5 years, 6 years ago now? 8, wow, see, already 8. 8 years ago we did.
Was that long?
And you know what NFPA says they're good for? 10.
What did we get? We got a grant or something for a couple, 3 years ago.
Gloves and
For other, maybe it was the helmets, wasn't it?
helmets and gloves and stuff.
Gloves and boots.
Okay. And then going back to your actual laying out on the budget, on the administration charges, starting with administration charges 337, went down to equipment replacement 728, down through 810. The department has requested dollars, but the manager has not. Is there,
Yeah, he said that. We don't have his.
I didn't receive.
We don't have the current one.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of his.
If you'd like, I can go and print my copy,
no.
my version and
You answered the
make copies.
questions.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, my recommendations did not change from Dan's because these budgets are pretty straightforward. There's not much wiggle room on a whole lot.
There isn't when you look at everything in that, so.
Okay, Kim had a good question this afternoon of me, and I asked her to bring it in on how the expenses were split up.
I was just inquiring, like, so for instance, I had a Menards invoice that I was entering into the system, inquiring as to, looking at the fire department, it looks like they have a buildings and grounds category on that, right under the revenue. And if they get things from Menards, they have a certain section that they put it to. I was inquiring as to why the Department of Public Works doesn't have a buildings and grounds section, and as to why those, so for instance, this one receipt that I was paying had paper towel on there. And it said for offices, public works, and fire department. So then the fire department one was getting charged to the building and ground supplies, and then the other purchases were getting charged to building and ground supplies. So I guess I was inquiring to her as to why there isn't a percentage that the public works supplies would get charged to public works instead of through the general fund, because they're enterprise funds, not general funds.
I think there should be. They have a garage segment that includes supplies.
Okay.
Um,
Because generally, when Lenny will like approve those invoices for me, he'll write on their buildings and grounds. And usually the fire department, I think the reason it kind of was brought up this time, and I caught it more, was because usually the fire department has their own receipts that they give me for Menards. And this time I happened to catch that they had bought the paper towel for all 3 facilities. And I was just kind of wondering why they were having to pay out of their supplies and the public works did it.
You transfer any of that out, Dan?
That's automatically done. Actually, our buildings and ground supplies, I just round it, we buy probably $50 worth of supplies, maybe 100. But the rest of it comes through buildings and grounds, buys it from wherever they
Right.
buy their supplies from.
Right, Delco.
And then that just gets allocated to us. And that number, that's why it went up real high during COVID,
But I don't
2020.
think it has been getting allocated
Yeah.
properly.
You're saying that it's being done. She's saying it's not.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, I gotta go by what they do, because we don't see anything.
Yeah.
My recommendation would be for us to review that at a staff level and fix it. I don't think that's a discussion you need to
No.
bother yourselves
Yeah,
with.
that's
We can
fine.
fix it.
No, and it was just something that we thought we'd bring up, so we didn't.
Yeah, I wanted to
Okay.
make sure that we were on the same page.
Yeah.
It's all internal now that they have to work at.
Yeah.
Yep, no, that's something we don't see.
We'll fix it.
Okay.
If Lenny's not paying his fair share, we're gonna make him pay his
Well,
fair
just
share.
give me the 22, we'll make
And
it
it very
right.
well could be.
We'll work
I
it out.
wasn't- Maybe I wasn't.
He's gonna come up, I wasn't there that can defend myself.
Right.
We'll get it right.
Plus he's
think
giving me
it's-
20,000.
Okay.
I understood it to be just the opposite, that some of it's going to Public Works
I
for
feel
the
that
whole of
Buildings
us.
and Grounds is actually covering
Yeah.
the majority of it.
Yes.
And I guess my
But why would
question
he be
was, is
paying
should
for
it
some?
all be buildings and ground general fund? Or should they each be paying their percentage?
I think each department should pay for their
Yeah,
own
would like
supplies
building
because they all have their own budgets.
Right, are they taking care of their own cleaning and things like that, or is building and grounds actually going to the
Yeah,
facility?
if
and
building
taking
and
care of it?
grounds is
There's both.
cleaning all the buildings,
Yeah.
then they shouldn't have to pay for it any more than the rest of them do.
They should pay for the supplies that are needed for their operations, just like Lenny should pay for the supplies needed for his operations, whether it's building and grounds related, general fund, or water or wastewater.
Does building
Even
and
if she
grounds-
has to code it to 5 different accounts, that's what we have to do.
Does
Yeah.
building and grounds bring that material with them when they come to clean the fire hall? or
Yeah,
do
they bring the supplies, whoever orders it, and I think they get it because they buy it in bulk.
Yep.
So they're probably getting a very good price versus us going to Menards.
So
We
then
don't have
they
the
shouldn't have to
same-
pay for it.
Correct, so then you're gonna wanna probably look at your general fund building and ground supplies of having a larger dollar amount, cause like I was telling you
Yes.
today, I need to do a budget amendment for it because it's already over expensed. Not yours, the general.
I just double checking, I didn't think so, but.
The general fund.
We'll
Why don't
figure
One or
it,
the other.
Why don't we have the
We'll fig-
manager look into it
we'll
and get
figure it
back?
out,
Yeah,
that we
just
don't
so
need
it's
to
just
worry
us
about it.
I want-
We just reallocate it to where it has to go, that's all.
Yep.
Yes, it's bogging us down here.
No, it's a procedural, she needed to know.
Well, then
Correct, but
You go to the manager and ask.
Well, and it affects his budget. If he's gotta start budgeting another $10,000 or $4,000 or whatever for supplies, we need to know that. It is important. Maybe it's $100. Or if we're not gonna do that, then she knows how to code it. It needs to be right.
in my world, I'm not worrying about it, in my world. That's, your world's different than my
Manager
world,
Kent,
so.
yes.
Give it to the bean counters.
Okay.
It's a bean counter one.
Who else has something on this
I got
budget
one,
part?
just one question
Okay.
on 801, contract services, it's drug testing. Do you have people that have just random drug testing, or what does that mean?
That's strictly new hires.
New
Strictly
hires,
new
when they
hires,
do the physical and,
And drug, and
so there is
that's really
no,
gone
there is
up
no
years.
drug testing
No,
for
we,
anybody?
the only way there would is, as just like anybody else, there was an accident.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
Dan, do you have periodic checks for drugs? Drug testing and that?
Drug testing, no, but we have drug dogs in there once a month.
Oh, yeah.
So there's no drugs in the building, I can tell you that.
No, I just come across an old note, and I was always gonna ask you that.
No, we do not.
Okay.
No, not once they're hired.
Here
Only
at
if
the
there were something were to
township,
happen.
we don't have CDL requirements.
Correct.
And you don't need them for driving fire apparatus. There's a state exemption for that, I believe. So there isn't an automatically triggered random drug test for anyone on our staff. If we suspect that maybe we have a problem, we have the ability to send them in at any time. That's the expectation of being an employee, that if we suspect there's an issue, we can deal with it, because there's liability issues, first of all. There's concerns for the employee. They may need help. There's a lot of reasons why we would, but fortunately, we haven't had to.
We have that in the drug policy in the personnel manual. It says that we have authority to do it if there's suspect.
Usually if there's an accident, it triggers that.
Okay, so Linda wanted to talk about the,
Right, I just wanted to mention that, when Dan came to the planning commission and we looked at the, capital purchases, the request, that on it was the water source for 50,000, and Dan can probably tell you what he told us about that. The heated garage is still on there, and he also told us that he was deferring that, and the ambulance was staying. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I don't know what you're looking at, but yes, that night of the planning commission meeting in July, June, July.
I think, yeah.
Yes, there was gonna be either or for the ambulance, or both, depending if we got the grant, you know,
We have supported that.
then the grant possibly for the heated garage. And the 550, after speaking with the DNR, and the DNR regional, I guess he's supervisor, we don't know that it's quite practical, expense-wise and time-wise, with the hydrant being at Northern. And with our mutual aid agreement, we believe we can get water up there just as quick by the time we found a place to be able to draft from and put a tank in.
You have a dry well
After
up
all
there?
these years of planning and thinking we had to have it, with our mutual aid agreement now with everybody, we think we're in pretty good shape.
so you wanna take the water source off
Yeah, I'd like to take it off.
completely, but you wanna move the heated garage to next year's discussion.
Well, the only reason it was on there is if we got the AFG, and this was manager and, or we, discussion that we'd had, if we received the AFG grant, we were gonna purchase an ambulance with those monies. And possibly, this was just a discussion, the ARPA money was gonna be used for a garage behind the fire hall that was gonna be utilized by a few departments, not just the fire department.
Us too, yeah, for storage, yeah.
Store, you're correct.
File storage.
Files,
Primarily.
and possibly buildings, that I don't know, but it was just discussion.
So
And
maybe we're better served if we call it a heated garage for township departments.
I'm fine with that, put it in the general fund. And just take it out.
Don't worry, you'll pay your portion.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
Kim knows now.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
I think,
It was gonna be located,
the
that's
community,
fine.
yeah, especially the planning commission was
I remember,
hot
I was here.
about that heated garage for the fire department,
I was
but
here.
it's
And
sort of
thank you for your
worded.
support with that, by the way.
Yeah, it's worded that, on here that it's just for the fire department, when in reality,
Right.
it's a heated garage for townships.
Operations.
That's why we need the
Operations
conditions.
department, and
Yes.
maybe we need to move that out of there.
So the Randy and I had been, Gerard and I had been talking about this, and we walked, and we had, what's his name, not Swick,
Oberstar.
Oberstar over here. A couple years ago, we looked at the property over here that he cleared. He kind of cleared it to see what it was gonna look like, but we thought maybe we'd put a garage over there. We talked about moving some of the fire, everything over there, and having it be a fire building. Then we walked over here, and then John came in to the operation, and he and I talked about this over here, and putting a building there. And then it kind of drifted to, okay, you've got the space, we didn't know how much. Somebody was gonna go back and see how much room you actually have, to see how big of a garage, and then somebody else was gonna see how many square feet we needed as a township, you know, not just
Right.
you. So it's on my list right here, 2023, talk about storage. And before we finish this year, we're gonna have to address this. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna take some of this money for you and some from us and put it into all building? Are we gonna start looking at where it would get? Do we have to hire an engineer? Do we need to get an architect? We have storage that we're paying for,
Yes.
and we need storage. So this doesn't make sense. It needs to get done.
We're looking for like a 20-year
Yeah.
outlook there.
Yeah, so, whether some of that's heated, or we have a loft, or we have offices or bathrooms or whatever. Oberstar's idea was even to take the community room, build a community room over here on that property, buy it, and then use this for the rest of the staff and take half of that and make that storage. I mean, there's 100 different things we could do, but we have to get serious about the conversation. We can't just keep putting it on and putting it on, you know, and not doing anything. So that's why I was wondering, if you've got it on there, were you aware of all this, or is this just something you think you want to do?
We would, I would definitely like to keep it on
Okay.
there, not that it need, like, and I agree with trustee Winslow too, not that it is the fire
Right,
department's.
Right. I
mean-
figured this would be like your percentage.
It would be a percentage, and we'd like, and as you know, we're running out of
I-
storage, and
I would not recommend putting the same item on there in 3 different categories because there's 3 pots of money.
right.
We put it in its own category and show there's 3 pots of money.
That's fine, sure.
The cost that's shown there, and I don't have it in front of me unfortunately, I would assume is the total cost. Does it show a cost?
Yeah,
Says
it does.
300,000, yeah.
Mhm. It's total cost.
I'm sorry?
300,000 with them allocating 15,000 a year.
And we
Under
went,
today's construction costs, it'll be more than that.
Right.
we went big, I guess depends on.
Yeah.
So the board needs to figure out storage. You'll be a part of that.
We know what the fire department needs for equipment storage. We have that square footage, it's on a note on my desk, Dan knows it. It just depends on which day we talk about it, because every time I do, it increases another couple hundred square feet.
We better do it fast then before it gets too big.
It's not a significant amount, it's about the amount you need to park 2 ambulances, because the facility they have was designed before we had an ambulance service. So that's about the amount of space they need to get, probably a little bit more than that, because of all of the other equipment they have that's seasonal, that shouldn't be parked up at the pump house,
Actually,
at
that's what I was
Public
gonna
Works,
say. Yeah,
that
it's
kind
all
of
over
thing.
the township.
And then we have the files that are being stored in paid storage, not under our control, other
So-
than padlock.
So what do you think about Tuesday's meeting, scheduling a work session while we still have the budget going, just to talk about storage? Maybe even a half an hour before our meeting or something like that.
I honestly can't think of a way that that's going to change the 2023 recommended budget, because we have money in the budget for engineers or architects that we don't always spend. We could get some sort of preliminary ideas from them. We have the survey for the fire department's property now. That's what they would start with for their site plan. We have money in the budget for consulting services that we can use to do the study. We won't be building anything in 2023.
Right.
In fact, I doubt we'd build it in 2024. Ernie's getting impatient over there, sorry.
I think first we have to say, why do we need it in detail? Once you have that, then you can take the next step, which means fire department needs some, township needs some, who else in the town departments need some? So we have to define exactly what we're talking about, what we need. And then that's the first
Yeah, I
step,
agree.
and once you move forward, that can catalyze outwards.
But the need is there for paying rent of storage stuff, so the need is already there.
Right, so that's where the
But
architect
that's
comes
now,
in.
but what's we gonna need in 5 years or 10 years?
Right.
Well, I know.
We're going out in that too, so.
Well, we know we need storage for documents and stuff. We know they need storage,
But I think we leave that up to staff
and then
to
equipment,
come up with
Yeah.
the rationale why we need to move in that direction.
but we have to do it.
Yeah, we have to do it. I have no question that we don't have, that we don't need it. It's just that we have to have something in front of us to justify
Clock speed
as
on
we
the
move
A
forward.
plan, a plan.
No, he was talking before.
I'm gonna
you
get a
started.
cattle prod.
Okay, then, well, that's what the board's for.
That's what,
You
Then,
never look at that.
do you want
Are you
direction?
recognizing me or not?
No, I'm answering him. He was talking.
I'm done.
He was
Turn it
talking.
over to Dan.
So, staff, manager, do you want direction in this form of a motion to proceed with this? Because if we do, then we put it on Tuesday's agenda.
If we have consensus from the board that we should be taking a closer look at it, we can do that. We already have a general idea, and let me finish the thought process that I wasn't able to finish earlier. When we started with the need for this building, we thought we needed office, lunchroom, locker room space for buildings and grounds. With Lenny taking on the responsibility of that staff, he's moved them into the Public Works building, and that need is not as pressing anymore. So the size and configuration of this building has already changed.
This
I
building.
don't, no,
His building.
the storage building we need.
Oh, okay.
We were talking about putting office and locker room, bathroom space, showers for our building and ground staff in there, but they're in Public Works now. So what we build next has already changed in scope. And for that reason alone, I would suggest we not rush. We do a good look at the space needs we actually need. Maybe it's a 2-story building where we have equipment storage underneath, file storage up above. The structural needs of file storage above equipment storage are different than office space above, because it's all dead load. So the structure needs to support that dead load. Once we know what the square footage is of what the fire department needs underneath, that will almost guaranteed dictate the square footage up above, unless it's sort of a 2-tiered with gable ends and that kind of thing, or this same type of roof that we have here, right? And we actually have some limitations on what we can do from a restrictive covenants perspective here as well, so. I don't want to tell you what I thought I remembered Dan's square footage being, but it's not significant. It's just the cost of construction right now is not ideal.
So when I was looking at my list and I went in and asked the question of Lenny, is how is it working with them over there in the building? Because I said, we're gonna have to decide storage, and I didn't know if we were gonna talk about it today, or next week, or next month. And he said, it's pretty tight. So you might have to circle back around to him and see.
His building was built with immediate needs in mind, and they have quickly grown, and they've taken on buildings and ground staff, which was not part of the equation. What he calls tight versus what I call tight are two totally different things. I've worked in departments that had half the space they needed for all of the equipment, and they made it work. Now, does that mean some equipment gets parked outside sometimes? Yes. Is that ideal? No. So what's realistic? What do we need in the next 5 years versus what do we need 20 years from now are two totally different things. And I'm not arguing with Lenny about the fact that the building they have is already tighter than it was supposed to be, they've got the same issue. If we get some of their stuff out of Lenny's space, it frees up space for Lenny. He doesn't have to keep everything at Public Works anymore. He can put his stuff where the fire department stuff is in his space currently. So
Okay.
I don't think we need to rush on it during this budget process. I think this budget process is far more important than anything we need to do regarding that building, because it doesn't change the budget
So the 15.
until we're ready to build.
The 15 should come off for 23 on the CIP.
Like I said, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't tell you for sure what it says.
Or,
And let's also remember,
we don't have.
the capital improvement process isn't the same as the budget process. You can have a million things in your CIP and not have any of it in your budget.
Just
That's the
recommendations.
idea.
I would love to see a CIP approved every year that's fully funded, but that's not reality. So if we're worried about the CIP, we should talk about it tomorrow night and change it, or next Tuesday. Change it then before you adopt the CIP.
That's why I was asking him now, and I was glad that Linda brought it up. Because we've already said from the general fund, we were gonna move, the pickleball court and stuff like that.
Okay, so the CIP, he's showing setting aside $15,000 every year towards the garage for his portion. I don't think we should get rid of that if he thinks he can afford to fund $15,000 next year towards that building. But I don't see it in his budget.
Correct.
That's why,
And we
that's
don't
why I
have,
brought it
and I
up.
wish that's, yeah. In the budget that I do, I don't have a capital line item. So I don't, because I'd like to be able to put that in, right in my budget. Yeah, we put $84,000 transfer to the general fund. Where that goes, I don't know.
You know where it goes. It pays your principal and interest payments on your building.
I know it does, but I don't know what percentage and stuff like that. I'd like to have a percentage that says building, and interest. This is what you need to pay, and anything else will, I would like to see that.
So Kim, if you just
But-
split that, that out, where it's that first column that we were just talking about, where it says fire and a building, and it's got a $2 million balance, if you can separate those two, that would take care of that, right?
I have,
You know what the principal and interest is.
I have it
But
written down
annually-
here to find out how much was.
Yeah, and that's fine. But annually, I'd like to have it right in my, because you don't see that, and you see what, I'm assuming this is what you're looking at right here. You see at the end of the year, I have 159,997 left over?
Your budget?
Correct.
Yeah, 159,000 left over.
And everybody knows where that goes, so, but I'd like to show you where that goes. So then if anybody looked at it and says, where's that $159,000 go? And it, just make it simpler to read, I think, instead of somebody,
Lynn?
Sir? Well, no, these guys were first, Pete. Dan?
So long ago, I forgot what Jesus, you gotta look down once in a while.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna let people finish
That's
talking.
why we
All
want to
right,
get
I've
that
got
round
three
table.
things that I just want to talk about. First of all, if Dan wants, if he's got 15,000 that he can put in, we should come up with a figure, or just pick a figure, and have Dan pay his portion, Public Works pay their portion, storage for this, everybody pays in, and when his is funded, he's done. So he doesn't have to pay anymore. If the other ones don't have it right away, well, then they're gonna have to catch up. That's just one thing that I wanted to press on. If we're talking about storage for the ambulances, then it makes a lot of sense to do it over by the fire hall. There's no sense in putting it over here, over there, or anywhere else, because that's where you're gonna need, the manpower's gonna be there, that's the only place we can really do it. And one thing we gotta just remember is, don't build it undersized. We've done that a few times, so just to remember, make sure we plan for the future. That's all I had to say.
Another building. John, you had,
Oh,
did you
I
have your
pressed
hand up?
both buttons so I could maybe get you to look down here.
John, other Johns.
Okay, go ahead, John, and then Pete.
I want to be clear on this. I don't think we're talking about building a garage to put the ambulances in. It's a garage to put the equipment that's not needed on a daily basis in, so there's room to keep the ambulances in the fire hall. It's to get the equipment out of the pump house that shouldn't be in the pump house. It's
Holdino and.
keep it all on the same property.
But
That way
still-
Lenny has room to park some of his equipment in those places.
But you're saying the size of 2 ambulances, roughly? Okay.
Approximately,
But
yeah.
that's where he was,
Yeah, it's the square footage that's being taken up by the ambulances in the fire hall
Got it.
that was never planned for. That's forcing them to park stuff at Public Works in the pump house that should have been parked in their building.
Okay, that makes sense.
So now that you add 2 ambulances to the mix, that takes up space for 2 other pieces of equipment or more that they should have parked there so they don't have to chase all over town for it if they need it.
No, that, they didn't have the jet ski, they didn't have
Right.
the trailer,
Snowmobiles,
they didn't have,
trailers.
you know, the snow machine, all that kind of stuff. So you can put some stuff in there for summer and swap it out for stuff that's gonna be in there for the winter.
There's definitely seasonal equipment that can be swapped back and forth. If it's across the parking lot, it's a much more efficient process than across town,
Yeah.
especially when it's across the highway.
Then let's get back to the CIP. The purpose of this, and I can show you MTA, I've got it attached right to my CIP because I read through it 100 times. If we're gonna have something in the 2023 allocation for a department, it should be on the budget. They tie together. If you're not gonna allocate the money this year, which is all I was trying to ask, then we put it in next year. If you're taking the garage off, then it doesn't stay on here. So by the time we get to the board approving this, they're supposed to be connected.
Let me just, I just want to sort of tie in both your, I think where you're both going with this. That garage, yeah, it's under the fire department, which we all agree, boy, I'd like to get. And when I filled out that spreadsheet, it automatically, I don't even know what we're calling it, if we're calling it amortization or depreciation. It automatically filled that out for me.
Right.
There's gonna be a 0 expense on the fire, and the fire department can afford, we'll get around to that, but at that time, when that was filled out, we could afford $0 towards that building. We were gonna use ARPA money, or we weren't gonna have it. So it was gonna be $0 cost to the fire department at that time when that was filled out.
Okay.
Not saying it's gonna change in the future, but when that was filled out, that was the intent. So all those 15, I don't know, should be zeros.
So when you're talking about having excess money to put on the building, you should be making some kind of a contribution to whatever storage building we come up with.
Oh, definitely.
So it sounds like this excess money that you have at the end of the year, if it's gonna be $159,000 this year, if
But
if
no,
the budget is locked,
Let me just, I'll back up real quick. Let me just tell you where that 159,000 is for the apparatus. That's the apparatus millage. That's spent. That's not, we do
then it
not.
shouldn't be an
It
excess.
can't go, it can't say
Correct, but you
excess.
don't see that. When you look at this, you don't see that. And I'd like to have that on.
Where is it?
Well, the apparatus is not on here, is it? No, because it's a,
It's already been purchased.
yeah, it's a balanced,
But
no.
to see,
Oh, yeah, that looks like you have 173,000.
He has a $120,000 debt payment he has to make to the general fund out
That's
of
a-
that.
when you,
Okay, so then.
And
at
the
least-
rest of it goes into his capital fund balance.
So
for future
53,000.
purposes.
What's the 120,000 for?
Our loan.
No, the building you said was 84.
Yeah, but the 120.
Equipment loan for the fire truck.
Fire truck.
Oh, to us, okay.
To you.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
So that's okay, you'll still have 53,000 to add to a fund balance that is how much today? Last year, it was $591,273? Is that what the fund balance was last year, or is? am I
Oh,
reading
for the
it?
apparatus?
I don't know if
That could be about,
right?
or 600,000? Would you say 591?
So there needs to be a line here that says that.
Well, I agree.
'Cause it
It's hard
looks
for
like
me to
they have a
even
lot of
jump
money.
around with all
Yeah.
these.
Right, Lynn?
Well, somehow, I mean, because you can only do so much with the budget.
I understand.
If this is balance sheet stuff.
Right, I
It
get
doesn't,
it.
you know, and that's what I'm trying to
Yep,
process
yep.
this. I can't figure out how. So maybe that ends up in your narrative on the very first page,
Well,
not the
I did,
breakdown.
that's why I did try and explain the very first thing I said there, and the remaining 158.
You did, pardon me, second paragraph.
Yep, will go towards the apparatus fund, minus the 120,000 we owe to the general fund.
Okay. And then I guess you should have kept going and said, then the 50, whatever, thousand, or whatever it's the, 30,000, 38,000 ends up going on the building, is what you're saying.
No, that would, no, that 38,000 is for apparatus only.
But your fund balance
No.
sheet tells you what's there.
Well, the fund balance says, that's the total.
Yeah, but it also indicates what's there.
It isn't showing what's spent.
Okay, this
It
is,
is.
now I'm more confused.
And it's hard to, it is difficult versus some of the other funds that are pretty easy to follow. General and water, there's pretty, ours is a little bit, you gotta jump around a little bit.
So of the 158,000 that's left on the bottom of your budget, you're saying 120 goes to us, pay
Yep.
us back, and the 38,000 is only going on the apparatus then?
Strictly to apparatus.
Okay, so you don't have any excess funds to
Correct,
go.
that's a zero, just like we do every year, it's zero.
You don't have any excess funds to go to the fund balance that you have to get rid of.
Oh, well.
We were just talking about splitting out the ambulance, that you had funds left over, of which I thought was the 158. Pardon me for
No.
not remembering that.
Yep, no, yeah, we have a zero every year, we put, it's.
No, I know that.
I know, but we could reduce some of those expenses, because like I say, we, if you will, for lack of a better word, vehicles, maintenance, and I don't like this word, maybe can be a better word, is padded, if you will.
Right,
We put in
fudged.
25,000 a year
Yeah.
for vehicle repairs. Generally, that's been 10, but one item will definitely take it over 25. One big repair, which can happen very easily, because our trucks are getting older. So that's padded, if you, for lack of a better word. So no, we're hoping to have quite a bit, 50 maybe left over,
So then,
at the very best, very best.
so I'm confused too. I'm confused as to,
I know what it is. I know what it is. It just came to me. What we're talking about are two different years. Because the money that you're talking about right now that would be excess is 22's budget. And you were asking about, can you hold it over till April or whatever to spend that down? This 158 is already committed.
Oh, every year,
Right.
158.
Yeah, so we're
roughly
talking about two different years.
Is committed every
That's
year.
where we're getting confused.
We just happen to owe 120 to the general fund this year.
Right.
But every other year, it is committed, it goes into the, if you will, savings account,
But look at it this way.
apparatus fund.
And this is what I didn't understand, and neither did Ron, when he found out that he had to spend all this money down. You remember?
Yes,
When
I
we
do.
went through that, and we
Yes, I
had the
do.
list of all the items and
Yep.
everything. I had him make a list.
I remember.
Okay. What he didn't know, and I didn't know, and the two of us walked into Lois's office, and she was going, and we're saying, now, is it this way? And then I looked at him and I said, no, this isn't right. At the end of the year, the end of '22, you are gonna have funds left. You can't really use this as an example because there aren't the right numbers, okay? If we looked at this and said, this is '22's budget, let's pretend, not '23,
Yep.
okay? At the end of the year, your contracted services, you've only spent $200. You've got $3,500 allocated in the budget. That money's set aside. You're only gonna use $271 of that, okay? Travel and conference, you've only spent $2,000. You've got $7,500 that you haven't, that you've allocated, but you've only spent $2,000, right?
Right.
So all of that money in every one of these accounts that's excess, all goes into the general fund. Ron didn't understand that.
right, you gotta spend it.
Yeah,
Pardon
and
me?
that's the money, that, all of that excess stuff. It's not the example of 158,000
Oh, correct. I
that's
agree with
left
you. Oh, I
here.
agree with you.
It's
Yes.
not that.
Correct.
It's all of the excess that you
others.
didn't spend and all the rest of the accounts
Right.
that gets dumped and has to get spent. That's why he just blew up when he went, where'd I get all this money? So
Oh,
we,
yeah.
and that's when we asked Lois, and she goes, yeah, it all comes at the end of the year. She wasn't able to explain it.
Right.
And we spent probably half an hour in there, and then I went and got Gerard and said, you've gotta be the mediator here. What is she talking about? Where's all this money coming from? Then he explained it. So at the end of 22, you are gonna have excess funds. That needs to be split out with the ambulance, so that you know what you can spend and what you can't spend in 22,
Right.
right?
Correct.
Okay, so for 23, of this 158, that's already committed. You will have excess funds again for 24.
I hope so. You're right, and we should.
Yes.
And we have every
Does
year.
that make sense?
Well, you don't do a carryover
Let
budget,
John-
that's what you
Let
do.
John speak.
Oh, yes, sir.
Can I just explain it from a
Yeah.
common sense budgeting perspective?
Yes.
We always budget conservatively. And what does that mean? Your revenues are estimated lower than you think you're gonna get, so you don't overspend. Your expenditures are estimated higher than you expect because you never know just what every line item in the budget is gonna need to be spent. So at the end of the year, the difference of what you actually made versus what you actually spent leaves this pocket of money. And we hope it's something. In a bad year, it might be less than that. Like when you have to buy a fire truck that you can't afford all of, right? Underestimate your revenues, overestimate your expenditures, manage the department as tight as you can. At the end of the year, there's a pocket of money. Same thing happens in the general fund, same thing happens in water and wastewater. Every budget is budgeted conservatively so that hopefully you have a pot of money to set aside at the end of the year. We just have an issue in that their special assessment funds must all be spent in the year they are collected.
Okay. So where's that pocket of money? Is it transferred, it's a non-carryover budget, right? Goes right to the general fund.
No, it goes, he's been putting it on the building.
Can't go to the general fund, it's gotta be spent.
The special assessment money
I
needs
get
to
there's
be
two.
spent.
Yeah, there's two parts.
The special assessment money needs to be spent. So historically, they have been spending that money on additional debt payments for their building, principal primarily. They have also been spending their excess revenues from ambulance service on debt payments on the building. What Dan wants to do is set it aside for other things other than just paying down the building faster, because he never knows when he's gonna need a fund balance. That's the only way he can generate a fund balance, right? So that's what we need to correct moving forward.
Correct, yeah.
So everyone else has a fund balance?
In terms of definitions, the general fund has a fund balance.
So all the money goes to the general fund?
No,
No, it goes to the fund balance.
Well, everyone does, well, no, it doesn't.
the fire funds stay in the fire fund.
Okay, so they have a fund balance.
No, they don't, because
For
there's,
apparatus.
well, okay, for CIP, yes,
Yeah,
or their equipment
okay.
millage, they do carry over until you end up in the situation we're in, where they overspent what they had in that.
Right, because we wanted a deal.
The general fund has a fund balance. The water and wastewater funds have a reserve.
It's a fund balance, but it's called a reserve.
We're gonna go down a major rabbit hole here. How much time do you have?
You don't have to, no, you don't have to. I just think that, yeah, you don't carry money over, that's the whole thing, or you, well,
Not from the assessment. we
right,
don't.
They
yeah.
don't.
The
state-
special
the state
assessment
says
cannot
send it
carry
down
over
and lose it,
because-
right.
But we do.
Okay, all right.
you
Everybody,
look at-
everybody has money, that's what I'm hearing.
If you look at the
This.
balance sheet-
Everyone has money, Dan.
If you look at the
Yeah,
balance
that's what I'm
sheet,
hearing. That's where I borrowed.
from one year to the next, you'll see it increasing.
I do.
We've said that
Got a
before.
little bit stashed away, don't you, Linda?
People say, you got $1 million in the public works account, or water, or whatever. What are you gonna do with that? That's,
Right, it's a, people call it a slush
but,
fund.
but a good part of that is committed too.
Right, and that's what we
Public
need
Works.
to know. We talked about that before. We need to know what of that money is committed.
Yeah.
And that's where your capital projects come in.
That's where your balance sheet comes in.
Yeah,
Okay, so John,
okay, well, we're way,
do we want to look at this CIP then Tuesday and with, does that give you enough time to worry about it?
Quite honestly,
Not for the buildings.
I have to leave for a funeral, so chances are
Say no.
getting it to the point where it's acceptable for you to adopt next Tuesday is probably
Yeah.
not feasible,
That's what I figured.
because the expectations are now different than what I expected them to be. So
15th.
Do the
would be better.
15th agenda then.
it's unfortunate, but I have to go to the funeral.
Don't worry about it. That's why I wanted to make sure.
Why do we have to address it now?
We have to approve it before the end of the year.
We have December.
It hasn't come to the board yet, you're saying it's gonna come to the board.
They already passed it, but it's not really real.
It came to the board, but the board's expectations weren't met the way it came to you. So we took no action at the last board meeting.
Okay, so we got a couple weeks then to work on this. That'll be good. That's what I wanted to get squared.
Okay.
Okay, so storage, we know what we're gonna do. Do we have consensus? We wanna have staff start to
Yes.
compile this?
That's
Yes.
the only way to
Okay,
go.
as long as, yeah, but I meant versus a motion, putting it on the agenda.
We can't make a motion anyway, this is work.
I know, that's why I said, do we have consensus?
Consensus
You
for
you
what?
can have,
No, then we talk about it Tuesday.
you can have consensus.
Okay.
You have it on this end.
As
You
long
have
as
it on
you're,
that
as
end.
long as you're good with that, John, I'm gonna take storage off my list.
Well, just, I think if we're done with the fire, we can dismiss them, then,
Well, it was about the CIP was where I wanted to go with that. Okay, yes, I think we are.
yeah, I
Unless
have
somebody
no
has
more,
something else.
I have no more questions for the fire
No, I think-
department.
I have no more.
We kicked the dog long enough
We'll
now.
take that.
It's a different department. How many times have we struggled with Public Works?
Every year.
This is different. Now, we're getting into the minutia a little bit because we're learning how his operation works. And that makes a difference. And the discussion about the salaries, and reimbursements and stuff, or whatever you wanna call them, that needs to happen.
We'll get back to you on that.
Yep.
So they'll,
Direction. I
everyone,
mean-
yeah,
And I'm glad.
Everyone
that
will
got
get
brought
to a
up,
point.
Because it's been talked about for
years.
every year since I've been
And
here.
maybe we can't do it. We'll see.
And that's the thing, but if we are gonna do it, we do need to know. And that's,
We'll find out for you.
okay.
We'll find out about paying down the building and how that works. We'll find out about the firefighters' training.
Can you look back a year and just roughly determine how many people went and how many, what it would cost an average for a year?
I can do it in probably 30 seconds. If I can get my phone on. Just, somebody gotta be quick on it.
Calculator?
Oh, that'll take me a second here.
Well, there's no rush.
There's no
Yeah.
rush.
Well, you figure average, say 12 people a year, 8 hours a day, and we're just gonna go with, we will pay,
Yeah, see,
say
yeah.
1 point, say 2 days. 22, 8, I'll just go.
Somewhere around 150
22
bucks?
22 times 8 times, make it 19, just for round numbers' sake. No, it has to be at least 1950.
22 times 8 times 1950.
Let's find out if we can do it first before we start getting into this.
$3,500 just for the EMS conference.
And that's under training and education, which
It
has
is.
$7,000.
And we've been really down on that. I didn't go to anything this year because of COVID. They've only went to one conference, I mean, mandatory had to go to conference, and I encourage, we encourage people to try and attend more training. We will pay for their training,
Expenses.
their lodging and their meals. We have not, as you know, have not paid for their salaries.
But we'll find out.
Right, and I encourage everybody to go, and next year we really do hope to go, and we've never gone in 15 years, is down to the Indianapolis
Fire
National-
Academy?
FDIC, thank you. And we haven't gone in 10 years, we should go, we need to go.
So lots of people need to go, or
No,
one
but
person?
it'd be nice if 2 to 4 at the very most. But it would be nice if we do need to go. We need to get some of these younger, they need to go to these shows and see what's out there.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of good training there too. So, and I budget for that every year, and that would be expensive, send 4 guys down there for, not even the whole week, just like 3 days, say, 2 or 3 nights at the most. I've always thought in my head 2, if somebody's gonna ask me, 3 days, 2 nights.
Plus 2 days of paid travel if
Plus,
we're paying them.
well, now we're talking a lot, now we're talking, I don't know if we can afford to send anybody to go.
Right.
So, I mean, we can work it out, but let me know and we'll see what we can do.
Find out.
Great.
Well, if we have to stretch out payments on a building so that these people can get trained to do what they're supposed to be doing,
Mhm.
you know, instead of putting 60,000 on a building, you put 40 and send
Right.
everybody to training all year. It just makes sense.
No, I'm
You
we're
have
all on
to
the
take
same
care of
page.
your
I think.
assets.
Yeah.
One
yeah.
life is worth a hell of a lot more than that.
You better believe it.
And it's the
we're all on
cost
the
of
same
business.
page.
It's the
It
cost
is
of
the
business.
cost of
It's
business.
the cost of
Yeah.
business.
Cost of doing business.
I don't think any community people would balk at that.
No,
Okay.
I agree
No,
with you.
I think they're supportive of,
Yep.
no one needs the.
And you learn more at a conference when you go, because it's not so much the
You better believe
substance
it.
of the council. It's at night, in the morning, at
Yep.
your lunch, you find out what everyone else is doing, and you,
Yeah.
very educational.
True.
So then, the last comment I'll make, Dan, is your millage expires in '24.
Right.
So,
Yep.
or 2023, well, whatever, but.
Yeah, we've,
But the
yeah,
next general election will be in '24, so you're gonna have to know next year if you're gonna wanna renew that, and at what rate. Because I think it's good, because you had money, because you got more trucks that are gonna need to be replacing. So I don't think we should lose that,
no, the apparatus
Forward.
fund has to stay.
so we gotta,
Should have had it years ago.
Correct. That's
Correct.
the first year I got here, we got to start it.
but the resident, I mean, it was passed overwhelmingly,
Yeah,
so,
really.
so I think if we keep that on the horizon for '24,
Yeah.
that'll be good.
Then after we see what the EMS numbers really are and how
Mhm.
that all works,
And we
then,
can
you know, it's an
all work
opportunity.
On that, that's gonna, or if Kim and I can, sometime, I know it's busy time, but, the next month or so, we'll try and get close as we can.
Maybe after the election? That
Oh,
next
yeah.
week or something?
Whatever, we'll get, with your,
Is that it?
That's it.
We're done? Thanks.
You're dismissed.
Come to us anytime and ask for stuff, because, you know, it's better for you to come ask us than for people to be disgruntled.
no, I agree.
Yeah, I don't think we're wicked.
It's all.
Do you?
Well, not all of us.
Okay.
Make, set aside 5 minutes of your report to us every month. And say, okay, this is what's happening, this is what's not happening.
You don't want to
These are the
hear.
requests. Yeah, well,
I
we need to know.
think, we do want to hear, employees want to be
do.
heard.
They do.
They wanna be heard.
I understand that.
Not every little thing.
Not every, exactly, and that's,
Right.
The highlights.
that's what we get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But something like this has been discussed for 25 years,
Yeah,
it has.
has it? Wow.
Well, no, the being paid, it's been asked about,
Yeah, well,
and it's
Thank you.
always just been. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Good, you too.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
So let's wrap up the general fund and be done with this.
okay.
Okay, the general fund also includes the sheriff's vehicle and the contract. We're gonna talk about the contract Tuesday. That was on my list. Solid waste loan, we need to take care of that, right?
It's being taken care of.
Okay.
And paid off.
Everything on my
So-
list.
If the board is in agreement that we pay that off at the end of the year before we close the books, it will be primarily a entry by the bean counter on the general fund side that removes where is it? $158,080 plus whatever additional interest from the general fund balance, and it takes that money and puts it right back into solid waste,
Right.
where that loan originally came from in, I think, multiple increments. It wasn't all at once.
With two of them. There was 2 times.
That sounds right. There was some already taken out when I came, and then there was one that happened since I've been here. I can't even remember for the life of me what it was at the time.
I think the first one was a match, wasn't it? For
Yeah,
MNRTF?
something like that.
Actually, they both were grant fund matches.
Second one too?
Well, second one had to do with roads or something with them.
Something different.
Yeah, it was something different than that. And I know I had discussion at the board level because of that money.
It would be, yeah, I think you recommended it both times.
No, I didn't, I said, no.
Well, that wasn't a dig, it was a compliment. I think it
Well,
was a good idea.
I was not in favor because they were looking at the bottom line of the total assets.
Right.
And I says, you can't do that. You can only look at the cash and investments, that kind of dollars. You can't look at the total assets because that includes everything in that. There's no dollar amounts that you can grab to do it, so. I didn't win the argument, so.
Well, I don't know that I either agreed or understood the comment from the, I guess that was the auditor, that email you sent me or linked me in.
Well,
I don't think that was the right answer that he gave.
Do we know what the answer was in the question?
okay, so I asked the auditor if it makes sense that we draw down this fund balance in solid waste over time by keeping rates artificially lower than they need to be for a period of time. It will buy time. We wouldn't have to raise the garbage rates for a few years. But when that fund balance is drawn down, I'm saying fund balance, it's currently labeled landfill closure fund. And just to catch everyone else up, the landfill has asked for a request in writing on township letterhead for what information we're looking for. I have not had the time to do it yet. I did request it via email, but they would prefer it be on township letterhead. I will draft it. I'll have Lynn review it before we send it. And it's just to confirm that we don't need a landfill closure fund, because we don't have a closed landfill that we own. They have to maintain their own closure fund that's reviewed every 5 years when their permit is reviewed by EGLE. So whatever reason was determined back in time when the township decided to create this landfill closure fund does not appear to be a valid reason at this time.
I think it was back in the 90s when the landfill started and that all took place back there. We had to put in something about a landfill closure fund. I don't remember what back in there, because that's the time that landfill was actually designed and built at that point in time.
But they have their own closure fund now for the active landfill. If we,
They're under a federal or state law to do that, aren't they?
it's
Yeah,
part of
yeah,
their
Eagle requires it.
permit requirements every 5 years.
So my question to the auditor would have been, does this fund need to be dissolved? I don't know that we need to keep money for something that we don't have to have. I'd like to understand better how that whole structure works and how we can pay it back, or, you know, can we refund everybody and get rid of it, or should we even?
I think we keep the rates artificially low until the money is spent down. You gotta keep some sort of fund balance, 4 to 6 months of operating costs.
But it isn't a fund we're required to have. Why? That's what didn't make sense either. It's not a real fund that we're required to have. Why do you have to have a reserve? I think he's wrong. I don't think he understood the question.
They said every community has to pay their share of the closure.
No, that's what we're saying.
I'm saying, that's what they said.
Oh,
You could-
before.
You could argue with the auditor on that.
Well, I think we need more clarity before.
Okay,
we
so
leave.
let's all look at this in the context of which I sent the email to our auditor. I explained it briefly. He misunderstood part of what I explained. He thought this fund was held by the authority.
Right.
It's held by us. We have authority to spend that money however we want, as long as we verify we don't need a landfill closure fund. Right now, it's sitting in fund balance in the general fund and solid waste fund, because the general fund owes $158,000 and change to the solid waste fund.
But what I'm saying is, that money was paid by the ratepayers, so it should benefit them.
Right.
Meaning,
What he just
you
said.
keep the rates artificially low until the money is spent down to a point where you have 4 to 6 months of operating costs left.
in that solid
That
waste.
makes sense.
No, it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense.
You don't
Why?
need to have, I don't think the balance should be there, period.
I will tell you why. If you keep it artificially low for
That's
X
the
number
other
of
part of
years,
it.
You're in trouble.
what's gonna happen when you run out of money? Example, right now, we're proposing $18.15. That's an increase of 90 cents. We keep it low and we don't keep adding on the costs. What happens when we run out of that money? I did a 20-year one at 90 cents. At the end of 20 years, you got, right now, we got $18.15. You're gonna drop $18 more on the fee for that. So you're talking $36. So you have to be very careful when you say, keep it artificially low, because the base does not
Compound.
stay there. It keeps building.
I don't disagree with that point. Would you prefer to cut a check to all of the ratepayers and just get rid of the money?
You can't do
Yeah.
that either.
We don't know that. That's what, one of the questions I
The
wanted to
problem
ask.
is, there is that the neighbor left last year, who's been here 20
No,
years.
because
What
every-
happens then?
No, because everything we do goes forward. We don't go backward at all. Don't think that would be a problem.
We need to make sure we're on
Right.
steady ground there between the auditor and our attorney. to do
What did we
something.
just do with the water and sewer? We didn't raise it
Because we
because we didn't need to.
Because we
had
didn't
enough.
need to, we have enough money there.
Exactly, and it's the same thing you used to have here almost.
Well, except
This
this, you
is the
are,
fund.
this one, you are subsidizing, I can't say that word, you are them,
Subsidizing.
and you're not in the water and sewer.
But see, what,
I agree with Lynn. I think, I don't think it's wise to tell people you have this amount of money and then in 10 years raise it $10. I can tell you,
And thankfully,
Nagani,
he put that formula
Nagani
together.
just sent out, Nagani raised it, $3 a month. Yeah, $3 a month.
well, the problem I have
That's
is,
'cause it's-
we
yeah.
wouldn't actually do that, because you would look at your deficiencies in here, and what you would do is start to raise your rates so they
Right.
meet in the middle.
Yes.
So you would not go up $10 a month. You would raise it incrementally, so you come to that point where you have, and John's right, you have to have a 4 to 6 month, or six, whatever, operating in that fund.
Why? It's not a real fund.
But what happens
We
if
have
we lose
labor
revenue
costs
in the solid
associated
waste
with it.
fund?
Then you raise rates.
It's gone. We have to still pay for it.
The biggest thing I'm concerned is when that money runs out, what is gonna be priced to our residents at that point in time? That's the key.
Randy's saying you go slowly up.
Yeah, but
instead.
we can't just take money from them and assume that that's gonna cover the rates for the next few years. That's not right either.
We don't know.
Can we look at the solid waste budget, please?
The solid waste is a real fund, Lynn. It's not a,
I understand that. The reason we're putting this money aside is not.
yes, well, we just found that out.
Right.
So that's new information. But we still have to have a solid waste 4 to 6 month operating in that fund, because if we lose all the revenue, what are we gonna do?
We're talking about two different things. We're talking
No,
about
solid
money.
waste fund,
No, but we're talking about money that was collected for a different purpose.
that we, at the time, we thought was correct. So now
That's
we're
the
gonna.
money I'm
but-
talking about. I'm not talking about the solid waste
He's
budget.
not talking about the 4 to 6 month money.
Yeah, but the
That
solid
stays
waste
there.
fund is you're right, it's not an enterprise fund, but I think the money should stay in that
The
fund.
solid, they're two different things. The
I
solid
disagree.
waste fund
I disagree.
is not comprised.
I disagree.
Okay, we heard that part. Now turn around and play nice in the
solid waste fund
sandbox.
is not totally comprised of the excess money that we took for the closure.
Correct.
Yes,
Every month, someone paid for it.
right. And Lenny was gonna put that together with Kim. It's 50 cents or 20 cents or whatever it is of the dollar that was set aside artificially for
Correct.
something we don't need. That's the money that needs to go back.
Well,
I'm not talking about the solid waste fund, and you don't keep a 4 to 6 month reserve of that closure money. I'm not
No.
talking about the solid waste fund.
I
am.
yeah,
No, the issue is the extra money we collected.
To close.
That's the money we're talking about, not the solid waste fund.
Where's the land closure money?
but it was in the solid waste.
It's in there.
It's all mixed
in
up.
Yes.
So I just say keep the rate there, incrementally raise it up. So I understand what Lynn's saying, but I don't think it's appropriate to cut a check to everyone.
That's
Because then
just
you,
one
because,
example.
because you lose all that money then, and then we're gonna raise, then you will raise your rates.
We artificially collected it.
At the time that we
Right.
thought was correct, so
Right.
it's not our fault.
Right, no, I'm not saying we did anything wrong, we were told to do that.
But I'm just
But it
saying,
doesn't affect the solid waste budget.
No.
It's separate.
but at the same token, the solid waste users will benefit from that money.
Somehow, yeah.
Yes, so that's what I'm
The
saying.
today users.
Somehow, they're going to
Today's
benefit.
users, yeah.
They will benefit
We
from
have to go
that money
forward.
I
moving
won't call me
forward.
daddy.
Ernie,
I wasn't first. John was first.
oh, okay.
I only wanted to say that I thought we had another consensus, a second one. That was that the township board was in favor of considering reducing the fund balance where practical. That's all. I think that we did that tonight. I heard it. I don't know what, we didn't formally adopt it, but I think that we had it. And I think it got conveyed.
Well, me and Lynn just have a difference of opinion on this
That's
deal.
okay.
I know.
But that's fine, we're not arguing, we're not hollering and screaming, we just have a difference of opinion.
I'll slap you when we get back to our office.
I just won't look at you, I just won't look at you.
I think we're talking in accounting philosophy right now. Because
We are.
in the past, when you're talking about this closure rate, that was added into the dollar amount to close it. Now, how do we back that out and make it legitimate?
You
And
can.
how we do it
If you
over the
can.
long run.
Right.
And it's, I
We
think
don't
it's
know
gonna have to be an
Project.
accounting. The accounting and attorney's gonna have to give us some ideas in that.
Auditor.
Stop
and
charging
attorney.
them.
Because if you're talking $7 a month in that rate was for closure, can we just,
Stop charging.
I'm just gonna make a statement. Can we drop $7 off the $13?
We have
Do you
to.
see- No,
We
I
have
don't know
to.
that. I'm throwing it out there.
I'm saying no.
No, we
Okay.
have to. If we're collecting $7 for the closure fund,
Look at your utility bill, it doesn't have a separate line item on there for landfill closure, does it?
no, but
No,
Lenny
but it
knows what
is.
that is, and he's gonna put it together.
Okay,
This is what I'm saying. We have to have the accountant and the attorney start giving us some,
The auditor. would be-
on the
I
auditor.
think
do
this is
someone.
being blown way out of proportion,
Yes,
in my
you're wasting a lot
opinion.
of time for nothing, you
Okay.
don't got
If
the
you
answer.
look at the financial statements, nothing in the financial statement says that $400,000 is earmarked for a landfill closure fee.
Correct.
It's a policy issue. If it was collected for that purpose and earmarked for that purpose, and now you don't need it for that purpose, you need to change your policy to, and know the right way to get it back to the people that paid it when they didn't need to in the first place.
They're like a utility deposit.
You could just give everyone free garbage until the money's gone. But the people that paid in for that 400 that are long gone, it's not my decision.
No, it's
I-
not any of our decisions. We don't have enough information.
Well, I think we have enough information, but
Just advice.
if you don't agree with me, that's fine.
I think we need to get some advice as to how to best address this and that too, so. Because I can run the figures out and I can tell you what they are, but there's other things that all of a sudden start showing up real quick in that.
You know, I have never worked in a place before that had a problem with too much money.
Don't you love it?
It's a really good problem to have.
If we need to have our people pay more, they need to pay it on stuff that they want to pay it on. We need to, we may have to have another millage for something, who knows? Maybe it's a DDA millage, maybe it's another apparatus thing. And if we're taking money from people that we don't need to take, that's not right.
But we aren't anymore. We reached that
We haven't stopped.
It's still built into the fee.
Yeah.
we reached the $400,000 landfill closure cap amount that was established by the board prior to my arrival. The rates that we currently charge cover our current O&M costs, period. That is how I did them the first year I did the public works budgets. That's how Lenny has done them the last 2 years. It's covering sanitary landfill costs, waste refuse collection and disposal costs, and customer account costs. That's all your rates are covering now.
So you stop charging the other
We
fee.
haven't charged that as long as I've been here.
So we just really have money sitting in a pot that we have to decide how to use that money.
Yeah, and it's been used sort of as a borrowing account as emergencies come up.
Yeah, and that's probably not what you want to do with it if you don't need to have.
Well, that's why the auditor suggested that be paid off.
Yeah, get rid of it.
The question is, how do we do it?
Well, somebody has to tell you how you can legally do that.
Okay,
So that's where we
there's
are.
2 issues there. The loan from the general fund to the solid waste fund needs to be paid back, so all the money is back into the proper fund, correct?
Right.
And these are all just, Kim enters 2 items onto the ledger. One is a payment from the general fund, the other is a collection by the solid waste fund. Expenditure, revenue. That's the only difference that happens in the system. We do it at year end before we close out the books. Now you have $400,000 in this earmarked landfill closure fund. What is the policy that established it? If we can figure that out, we're well on our way. It was before my time. Let's find that policy.
What are we gonna do for the rates for the coming year? That's the question. This board's gonna have to make a decision now, not too distant future.
Just leave them alone until you find out what you're doing.
We're gonna have to.
Okay, that's fine.
Unless we get some kind of information before the end of the year.
That's fine. I just wanted to bring it up so it's something we have to think about.
But remind me, did Lenny say that we don't have to do the 90,000? Or, I'm sorry, 90 cents? That's what he was proposing. I don't remember where we left
If
it.
we don't touch the landfill closure fund, we need to increase rates by 90 cents a month per customer.
Well, I would be the one that I think we should increase.
Leave it
by
alone.
90 cents.
As of right now, I'd say let's go with what we know.
Leave it alone, yeah,
Leave it
Yeah,
alone.
leave-
and that.
yeah.
I would like to do something, but
Right.
I don't know what to do.
Well, the thing
We don't
is
know what to do.
if you increase it 90 cents and they find out you got 400,000 sitting in a bank that we've found out that we don't need anymore, they're gonna want it to go towards their rates. A lot of residents are going to,
Or they want a refund.
or they're gonna want a whole refund.
We should be able to get an answer before the end of the year.
Yes.
Then we just don't.
From a clearer step-by-step of what we have to do from the auditor, would be my
First
guess.
gotta ask the
or attorney.
question.
And I would say you're gonna get your refund, but it's gonna be over a long period.
And I would also suggest somebody else reword the question to the auditor, because the way I worded it, it was misunderstood. And I'm gonna need some help,
I think
because
we
the
need-
expectations are different than what I thought they were.
When you get back, I would like to make the phone call, so that I got a good sense of what we can and can't do, and we need to explain it to them. But in the meantime, you're right, we need to find out whether we did institute a policy or if we got direction from somebody on how to do this, when to start it.
It was discussed at the Nagani Township Hall that time we had that meeting about waste.
Well, in my time here, it's always been this way. Last,
Back in the 90s when it
I don't know if
happened.
there's
and that.
anything, I can look in the folder and see if there's anything in there that directs us.
and I don't know, Lynn, if that was a policy that was made, or if it was just,
I think it was directed.
it was just a
We
directive.
didn't have,
It,
I don't know.
it was in, and you'd have to probably talk to Randy about that,
Mm-hmm.
because he was always reminding us of that. So he would know where it came from, unless it was before him. And he was here 20 years.
Jim Nancar's in Township, he got all upset over this or something.
Who?
Jim, then, Then Karis,
Nan Carroll.
Lieutenant
And
Curvis.
Curvis.
Oh, no, oh,
Yeah, he's the one that got all upset at the meeting one time, and we talked about it after, so.
What was he
Going-
upset about?
Going way back to the,
He didn't think it was right that we had to pay for it,
Yeah, we're not the only township.
right?
going
As
back
far
to
as I know,
the,
it's all of them.
going back to the 90s, the supervisor in one of the West End townships was the individual that was involved with it completely to get it all taken care of, and I can't think of his name. And that, and I know, I sat in the meetings out in Shockley Township at that point in time.
Yeah, all
too,
the
so-
records were there.
Who?
All the records were there
Yeah.
in the beginning.
Yeah.
I'll see if I've got anything in my folder, solid waste folder. Otherwise, I'll call Randy.
Yeah, because like I said, maybe it was never a policy, it was just a directive from when he came, and then that was always figured into your rates at the time. And we've been building this for a long period of time.
It was, the balance was at 400,000 or greater when I came. That's the best I can tell you. Short of the loan to the general fund.
Well, like I said,
Okay.
we find out how many years we've collected this too.
Why can't it be done in small increments to the people, you know, $2 a month off for the next, you know, tell them we found this money, it wasn't supposed to. Well, you-
right, that's a good way to show
You're
people.
better, yeah,
You're
you're
getting
better
a
off, rather
rebate.
than write them a check.
Yeah, a
You're gonna
rebate.
give them $2 a month for the next
Till it runs
5
out.
years until it's gone, and then,
Or you don't raise your rates for 7 years.
or you don't raise your rate for 7 years.
But the
But you gotta be,
eighth year-
you gotta be open
eighth
and
year is
honest and
gonna
let
be
them know
hammered.
Yeah.
why.
That's
The
it.
eighth year, you're gonna have the
Big
compounding of
hammer in
7
the eighth
years.
year.
They're gonna keep raising the rates, and they'll be
The rates are
artificially
gonna
low,
continue to
and
go
then
up.
they're gonna jump.
Right,
Part of it.
well, they gotta be aware of that too.
We just have to adjust it so
We haven't-
when
we
the
haven't-
rate
No.
change happens, it's a reasonable rate. Yeah, you don't wanna go up $10 in 8 years. You
No.
wouldn't like that.
So Nagani went up $3 a month.
I laid it out.
Something else to consider, if I may.
Nagani Township.
Yeah.
On top of 18.
Some of our customers have asked when they're gonna get garbage carts.
Oh, yeah,
Ask
How
what?
do you pay for garbage carts?
Out
Got
of that
money.
300,000.
But before you do that, you have to make sure that
You can do
our
it.
hauler doesn't have added costs to
For their
do their
equipment.
routes because of it.
So they added an arm to do the other cards. You just add another arm?
Well, there's a cost associated with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, but anyways, are we done?
I think so.
So the general fund, we're not gonna finish yet tonight.
Well,
We
I
have
think,
more questions.
well, I think we're pretty much done. The
Oh,
only-
no,
only
are we
thing we haven't-
doing 5,000 to the upset team like we did last year?
Why wouldn't we?
This year has 10,000 in the
10,000.
budget, last year was
10,000
5.
this year.
We did 5 last year, I think we should continue with 5.
No, I'm gonna keep it 10. I'll fight you on that.
We
We're
did
gonna
what's
keep it
going on.
10.
It's
10
10
last
this
year.
year.
10 last year.
Yeah.
We did 10
Oh,
last year.
in his budget it said 5.
No, he was
Last
wrong.
was wrong.
year.
Oh,
so-
well, I'm still not supportive of that. I think we give a lot of money, a lot of money.
That's for, you know, just the very next
My
day.
opinion.
That's great. The very next day, I saw him in Walmart making a bust.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like 7 state police cars and our sheriff
sheriff.
department car was there too.
Yeah, and they're all over, you
Yeah,
know.
but
bus
they,
all
that
over.
was, but he said, see, I'm still working.
Yeah, well,
Still had the same clothes on too, so it must have been an all-night affair.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So then what are we gonna do about this, events committee? How much money are we putting in there?
Yeah, we probably do have 12.5 in there, don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
How much in the events committee do we have? And who are we gonna give that money to, and how's this gonna work, and, or is that
now we're
another?
getting into
else.
operational things. Do you agree or not to keep 12.5 in there? If you don't want to, change it to whatever you want. And then when it's time to do the expenditures, you either trust that I'm gonna make good decisions if it's within my spending capacity, or I bring it to you and you make the decision, which is what we have been doing.
And how is-
Knowing how much angst there's been about
Yeah.
certain things going on.
Yeah, and how's it gonna look, because everyone left the committee?
Who left the committee?
Randy Gerard
So,
and Todd.
I'd still there to the end of this year if I,
No, he's done.
oh, is he? Oh,
He's going to help with the tree lighting, but he's basically a contractor at
Yeah, right, okay, I didn't know that.
Well, we need to have the discussion about what events we do or don't
Right.
do next year.
Yeah, so is that a separate issue?
Well, if we left the 12.5 in there because we may have expenses, we can always do a journal entry and move it somewhere else.
Okay, I'm just
What's
supportive
there?
of
That's why I
saying,
brought it up.
I'm supportive that we move the events out to groups to let them run, and that we support them like we do the 4th of July fireworks.
Should we put, when do you wanna have the discussion? Should we talk about events before the end of the year? Is that important? Or just leave the money and talk about it in January?
I think we should talk about it in January.
Leave the
because-
money and just talk about it in January.
So I guess the only thing we haven't covered in the general fund is the Metro Authority, is that's, I know that's just an in and out transfer, but.
Yep, and it's,
Then that one's good.
can I actually say one other thing?
Sure.
Okay, we eliminated the wheelchair swing from the budget, correct?
Right.
We found out, Brenda and I found out today that the maintenance contract we have on our mailing folder and stuffer is running out in January. It could keep running fine for a year, we don't know, but they won't service it anymore. We have to replace it if we want it to be serviced. It's just like Windows, right? They quit providing support for it, now you have to take the risk of it failing on you or getting something they will support. The machine is going on 12 years old. We're doing pretty good with this machine, but it's time. The replacement cost is about 15 grand, or we can lease it for about $500 a month for 5 years, and then it gets replaced. The total cost over 10 years, if we purchased it, would be $42,500. It would have 3 trays, so you can put 3 pieces of paper in any utility bill. Or we can stick with a 2 tray, but I don't have that price. We'd have to ask them for it.
But we have
If-
to, sorry.
If we leased it over 5 years, it would be just under 30,000. If we purchased it, the first 5 years would cost us $28,700. So it's a little bit cheaper to purchase. And if we kept it for 10 years, you can assume that it would almost be $17,000 cheaper to purchase it. Because the lease is for 5 years, you get a new lease in 5 years at a higher price because it's never gonna get cheaper. If we got 10 years out of it again, we're doing pretty good. It's an expensive piece of
What
equipment.
are you suggesting?
What I'm suggesting is we need to put $15,000 in the CIP to replace this equipment because it has to be done.
Why don't we, when you get back next week, why don't we sit down and look at the CIP if we have time? Otherwise, it doesn't have to be looked at until the 15th meeting. Oh,
This is budget.
yeah.
Do you want to adopt?
You wanna change it
All right.
now? No, that's fine.
That was my recommendation, to add the 15, you already took 50 out of the
Yeah.
CIP. If you put 15 back in,
Still have
also,
30.
we only had 30,000 in there for the window replacements, and we had that discussion too. Do you want to increase the window replacements to 50 to make sure we're getting the right windows?
So you want a motion for $15,000?
Not, it
Not
wouldn't be
here,
a
we
motion.
can't.
It'll just be
I
changed
know,
in the budget,
want
that's
to get it
all.
going.
CIP, and then hence it'll be moved in the budget.
One more
The
consensus.
capital computer equipment line would be increased from 5,000 to 20,000. Everyone okay with that?
Well,
Yeah.
we were gonna put 10 though, wait a minute. Did you count for that? We took 50 out. What was the 10 for? Shoot, I didn't write it down.
Windows. Was it Windows?
Oh, HVAC,
Oh, to look at the HVAC stuff.
yeah.
Okay, so building and grounds would increase to 55.
Because that's part of what we wanna do with the remodeling in the office.
And HVAC, yeah.
Yeah.
We want it to last for 20 years, not
Add a little
8.
bit, just make her
So
serve.
we took 50 out, we're putting 10 in, and now you want 15,000, you said, for the machine?
Yeah, so computer equipment increases from 5,000 to 20,000.
Because the mailing device is computer equipment.
So we still have 25,000 in there
So I
then.
can explain
We
it.
still have 25 more to spend.
Well, we don't
You don't
have to
have to.
spend
No,
it.
I'm just saying.
The option is
Right?
there.
We had 50, and now we're adding 25 back in.
If you wanna approve a budget that's the exact amount of expenditures that I had projected, yes. I don't think you need a $0 bottom line to show
No.
a balanced budget, because, let's remember, it's a planning tool, right? And I think the more you can show in that bottom line, the better we're showing restraint in managing taxpayers' funds. To the point where eventually we say, we've built up our fund balance so good, we don't need to ask you for these supplemental millages for a while, right?
Yeah.
They like that, they like that.
But if you want to balance that out somewhere, whatever you think is the right place.
What about the windows, though? You said, I wasn't totally listening. You said you thought it was more than 30?
Better windows, or you have to stage them. You know, there's nothing that says we have to buy all the windows the first year.
No, but
You can do it
you
over
run the
time,
risk
but
of
you're-
that window being discontinued too.
Correct.
Once you're mobilizing with your crew.
And I do want quality windows. I don't want,
I don't
obviously.
think the number he got from Menards is not a quality window,
Well,
because they have many different product lines there.
mhm.
That's not to say it's where we have to get them from, that was a budget number.
Then,
So do we want to account for the 30,000 then?
Well, the 30's already in there. Did you want to make it 50, so you know you have enough to do the job right?
Windows are in here?
Yeah. Window replace, 30,000.
Where?
Capital Building Grounds. We have 15,000 for the
Pardon
plotter
me.
scanner.
Yes, okay, I got it.
30,000
Thought
for windows.
We
and
all
now
agreed before that 30,000 was not nearly gonna be enough.
So make it 50, John, but not to you know, you don't have to spend 50 if you can get them for less, right?
We're not going to,
Yeah,
that's,
that's what you're saying, right?
we go and
Okay.
get competing prices and we buy the best deal for the money.
And they might be more than 50. They might
know.
be. Oh, windows are pricey.
Is there
Okay.
consensus on that?
So what do you
Yes.
want, 50?
Yeah, you want the big.
So we changed the 30 to 50. We've got 50, 15, and 10. 60, 75,000 in building and grounds.
So we took 50,000 out for the wheelchair space, and we just spent 15 and 20, right?
No,
So-
30, because of the HVAC and remodel.
Oh, that HVAC thing, okay.
We spent 45 of the 50.
Okay, so we have 5 left, that's great.
Ernie did have something he wanted to say.
We're talking about the budget, we're moving dollars around and everything else, but you have to realize this is a living document. What we're putting down there is what our best thoughts at this point in time. As John said before, our revenue, we look at that as being lower, our expenses as being higher. So we can come down to the bottom line the best we can and that. But it's a living document. It's gonna change throughout the year. We're gonna do our best to come up with what we think is best at this point in time, and then move forward on that too, so.
The only thing I don't want to do is forget something. I mean, not that we
I
can't
agree
add
with
it
you, I
in,
agree
but
with you.
if we get it too tight, all of a sudden, that's why I mentioned the windows, I couldn't remember that they were in there. Do you, oh geez, it's after 5. John, do you want to talk about Integris? Or save that?
We talk, we're not eating till 5:30, so we might as well spend a few more minutes to talk about that.
Okay. So,
Yeah, Ken, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
we were approached by an IT firm to do a evaluation of our IT system. And it was at a affordable price. So we agreed to do that. I can't remember, was it $500?
Yeah, the board approved it.
$500, and they were given access through our current IT firm to review our server, all that kind of thing. And they came and gave us an explanation of their evaluation, at least to the extent they were able to access. They have some concerns. Some of them are pretty high-level concerns that should be addressed sooner than later. I think we could probably work on those with our current IT firm, but they're the ones that also got us there. So I'm not here to point fingers, I'm just concerned that we may not be as protected as we had hoped we would be. They gave us a proposal to basically take care of this stuff for us and ultimately become our IT firm. I think they have a really good plan. They have adequate staff to serve us, and if that staff is busy, they have backup staff to cover for them. So it's a matter of if you're willing to change who we're currently getting our IT services from, are you willing to look at this firm?
Where are they out of?
Marquette. Down by Todix Econo Foods, or whatever they're called now.
And who are they?
Integris?
Integris. That's
Used to be
that's a,
Compudyne.
oh, Integris is a healthcare company. That's interesting.
Used to
It's
be
spelled different.
Compudyne, and they moved to a different.
Why would we want to go back with a firm that's compromised our,
I'm not recommending that. It will be at an added cost, so you get what you pay for.
So our IT for all of everything we have, like the fire department's IT,
Yep.
everybody, our computers?
906?
It'd be
106 we
everything.
have now.
Right, but they'll service the computers we have,
All of our IT needs.
so they would fix those.
How much more is an increase?
I don't know that we have that answer for you yet. They charge a monthly fee, which includes any calls that they get from us, any work they have to do to keep our system up. They prefer to be proactive, so that hopefully we never have to call them. But it's basically a monthly charge.
We're paying 906 too.
You're not happy with
Yeah,
that?
they're not free.
700 a month or
You're
900 a
not
month?
happy with 906?
I would say they've had some challenges lately. It's mostly resource related, staffing.
Well, I do.
Yeah, they've gotten rid of some good people over there.
I don't know if they've gotten rid of them so much as the marketplace
I
has
didn't wanna
been
say
very
that.
competitive.
But we do have a proposal that is probably close to what, and we can bring it to you Tuesday night if you feel we should go that way.
It's not more affordable, but it gets us to the point where we can actually purchase cybersecurity insurance. They don't think we would be eligible currently.
And it's a,
Because we're so lax.
Where are
and it's a 3-year contract, so I mean, we're not locked in for a lot of years, so if it isn't good, we can get out.
It sounds like it makes sense.
Do we have to
The
give?
question
put
I
that
have
out
is,
for-
being in that business, well, that's 40 years ago, when you start changing vendors, what kind of problems are we gonna have with our current vendor, getting information from them to support our new vendor? Are we
There
gonna have
will,
any?
there will be a 30 to 60 day transition. It can't happen by flipping a switch.
I know, I'm just looking at getting information from our current one
Mm-hmm.
to give to the new one. We have to make sure we got that all covered.
Never.
Are they
It's not
required,
us, they will.
are
take
they
care of it.
required by law to give up all the information?
Well, of course they are. It's our property.
Our
I think that's what you were saying, right?
I don't care what the law says, I've been through it enough. I know what
You're
happened.
just wondering how much of a chore it's gonna be.
Yes, how much
You know.
additional work in that.
Is it
Well, it's
gonna
not
be a
work
fight?
for us, it's gonna be work for the company that we hire.
It may
The two companies.
infringe on our time frame.
They already do this, they have already done that, they've already called them this time and got some information. And even some of the people they've talked to at 906 don't have the answers, because they don't have a clue what's going on. Which is the biggest part of our problem, is we don't have help. You know, Dulcie didn't have help, Janelle didn't have help. There's a lot of different things going on in the.
There's challenges, yes.
They have good staff. I don't want that to be,
906,
yes, they do.
yeah.
They don't have enough
Very
staff,
conscientious.
I believe. I
Too
believe they're.
thin right now, way too thin.
Well, and they've diversified their service portfolio to an extent that I think it's challenging for them to focus well on all of them. That's my opinion from the outside looking in.
Well, see, and listening to the group presented, they only concentrate on IT, where our current vendor, 906, is diversified, so they're not as, there's challenges within that group, they're growing pains. And this group doesn't have that, they're just IT based, so that's why, there's
They
another
focus
benefit.
on doing one thing really well.
They want to, they're willing to call us every day and see how we're doing, right down to that. But typically, they do it quarterly, meet with us and say, okay, what are you working on? This is new, this server needs an update, or blah, blah, they want to be very proactive. When they talk about two things, when he said, when everybody goes home at night, the computer goes to sleep. What's happening? What are the chances that's gonna be hacked during the night? There's no really good protections. The other thing that Randy brought up was, 7 years ago, you said? That we signed, Joe came in and made a presentation. It probably wasn't me, I don't remember.
He came in one afternoon and he bought lunch for the staff and, kind of say, we're gonna do this and this and this. I haven't seen him in 7 years.
So
But Joe's not, not throwing anyone under a bus, things have changed there, so.
So who are their other
So
customers?
we don't have that contact anymore.
Do you know?
Nice school district is.
I don't know specifically, but if that was important to you, he will be here Tuesday night.
Yeah, that's always important.
I know nice school districts are, because when I was looking at their website, it said their IT provider was Integris, so they
Is
are.
it E-Tegris or not?
Integris. Integrity, I think that's what it's.
Integrity.
Yeah. But I will, so now the board, I will put that in the packet, that proposal, so you will see that Thursday when the packet comes out. As John is right, it is a little bit more expensive, but it's like me in the camera world. You get what you paid for.
They have a cost
window.
in their proposal that covers a lot of the upfront expenses they know they're gonna need, based on what they've seen, and then there's the monthly agreement moving forward from there.
And they'll pick it up, kinda like 906 did, we decided we wanted new computers, or even when we wanted computers, they set them up for us, and then we went with the newer ones and got the notebooks. They'll do all that. And they'll make sure that it's connected to, the server. I told them the story about me going up to Best Buy and buying a computer, and it wouldn't link with the server, so I had to take it back, and then 906 still had to buy me one, or, buy us one. Because they know what. 906 didn't tell me that when I went up to Best Buy and bought
And they
it.
will actually bring in some of their equipment and replace
They'll take
ours.
care of it,
And they'll
make
take
sure.
care, they'll take care of everything.
And that's, like Linda said, all three buildings, everything we've got.
Township wide.
Yeah.
No, yeah, who owns this place? Do you know?
I don't.
Oh,
They're a conglomeration of
think they're-
multiple
China.
IT
China.
firms.
I think it's Denver, did he say?
They're a national corporation.
Yeah, but I
This
think
is,
their office is in Colorado.
yeah, I don't know. But
Jeff
any,
Nemechek is the person that came and did the evaluation. He used to have his own business.
his
I
name?
know him. Mhm.
Hi.
Hey. What's the first name, do you remember? Nemechek?
Jeff.
That name
It's
all
Bill
of a sudden
Nemechek's son.
Huh?
Bill Nemechek's a C.
Oh, okay,
His
okay.
son.
That name just,
Mhm.
oh.
okay, wanna adjourn and
I'm
then,
worn out. I need food.
okay.
I just had one other question. I missed that one meeting. Did
Yes,
you discuss
at
at all
5:30.
about,
Yeah, discussing.
I'm
our
hoping
own
Lynn
sheriff's
has an
department,
agenda.
or our own police department, I should say? We were gonna talk about it at
Oh, my.
our budget times, but was it ever discussed?
Your birthday supper?
That would
No,
be
it's
a
not
s-
something we're gonna do
My birthday.
in the next year, but I would like to at least put it on a special meeting agenda or something so we can talk about it.
schedule a work session for it, not a
Yeah.
special meeting.
For
but a
what?
work s-
Yeah.
for-
Work session?
Well, Linda was actually on one of the old committees when, 'cause I remember she participated in when the township was looking at having their own police service.
Oh my
Get some table
gosh,
set up
yep.
for planning commission.
Yep, I did. Mhm, I probably have my notes.
Okay.
Probably need to
Okay,
set up
adjourn
tables
the
for the
meeting
planning
then,
commission,
Lynn.
right?
Okay, 3:18.
We don't know.
I'll do it.
5:18.